Chapter 1878. The Illusion Tribe leader stared at the Illusion Tribe expert in front of him. "Where is young Master Yi now?" The Illusion Tribe expert said in a deep voice. "He is in Sky Spirit Universe." The Illusion Tribe leader frowned. "Sky Spirit Universe?" The Illusion Tribe expert nodded. "A Level 4 Civilization Universe." The Illusion Tribe leader was confused. Why is young Master Yi in such a low-level civilization universe? The Illusion Tribe expert shook his head. "I don't know." The Illusion Tribe leader was silent for a moment before saying, "Pass down my order. All the experts in my tribe who have reached level 14 are to head to Sky Spirit Universe to receive young Master Yi." Hearing this, the Illusion Tribe expert was confused. The Illusion Tribe leader looked at the Illusion Tribe expert in front of him. "Is there a problem?" The Illusion Tribe expert hesitated for a moment before saying, "All of them." The Illusion Tribe leader nodded. "Not only that, I will go personally." The Illusion Tribe expert was shocked. "Tribe leader," the Illusion Tribe leader slowly closed his eyes. "My tribe will welcome young Master Yi with the highest standards." The Illusion Tribe expert was speechless. Inside Xiao Ta. During this period of time, Yi Xian was able to overlap the first to fourth spacetime and form spacetime pressure. It could be said that the current him was already a level 10 expert. Especially with his sword skills and the profound green sword, he was almost invincible among those of the same level. However, he discovered a fatal problem. Ever since he came into contact with the Celestial Tribe, his cultivation had been inseparable from the spacetime Tao. Even the current otherworldly demonic tribe focused on studying the spacetime Tao. Of course, this was not a problem. However, he did not forget that he, Yi Xian, was a swordsman. Back then, his big brother's words had shocked him because his big brother did not understand the spacetime Tao at all. His big brother only understood the sword. However, his big brother's sword could break through all spacetime. Swordsman. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and fell into silence. During this period of time, he had not cultivated the sword and had been cultivating the Tao of spacetime. His Tao of spacetime had indeed become much stronger. Now, not only was he invincible under the 10th phase, but even 11th phase experts might not be his match. However, his sword Tao attainment had not improved at all. Sword. Yi Xian looked at the green profound sword in his hand and sighed in his heart. He had neglected the sword Tao during this period of time. He also wanted to improve his sword Tao, but his sword Tao had reached a bottleneck. It was very difficult for him to ascend again. Among the human swordsmen, other than the three of them, he could be said to be the most powerful. Now, he could only rely on himself to explore the way of the sword. Seeming to have thought of something, Yi Xian frowned. "I've broken through a lot recently, but why hasn't there been any movement in the sword Tao imprints of my father and big brother?" At the thought of this, Yi Xian sensed the two sword Tao marks, but there was no movement at all. Yi Xian's face darkened. This sword Tao imprint couldn't have been tampered with by his father, right? At that moment, the otherworldly Spirit King's voice sounded from outside the hall. "Young friend Yi Xian." Yi Xian recollected his thoughts and left Xiao Ta. When he opened the door, the otherworldly Spirit King said in a deep voice, "Young friend, I have bad news." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What is it?" The otherworldly Spirit King nodded. "That black-robed man is from a level 5 civilization." Yi Xian chuckled. "Just as I guessed." The otherworldly Spirit King said again, "He is determined to obtain your sword. He might make a move soon." Yi Xian said softly, "I never thought that I would be targeted by someone from a level 5 civilization the moment I arrived. I really admire myself." The otherworldly Spirit King said in a deep voice, "His target is your sword." Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, a terrifying pressure suddenly swept over from the sky. Boom! In an instant, the entire sky became illusory. The otherworldly Spirit King's expression changed drastically. "He's here." Yi Xian raised his head to look at the sky. The sky suddenly split open, and a mysterious expert wearing a black robe slowly walked out. Seeing the black robe, the otherworldly spirit king's face immediately darkened. The other party was not giving the otherworldly demonic tribe any face. The black robe looked down at Yi Xian and said in a hoarse voice, "Young Master Yi, have you made up your mind?" Yi Xian smiled. "How much are you willing to pay for my sword?" The black robe said, "Young Master Ye's life." Yi Xian's lips curled up slightly. "In other words, if I don't sell it, I will lose my life. Am I right?" The black robe said, "Yes." At this moment, the otherworldly spirit king suddenly said, "Sir, you are being too overbearing." The black robe looked at the otherworldly spirit king. "Does the otherworldly demonic tribe intend to interfere?" The otherworldly spirit king looked straight at the black robe. "So what if I interfere?" The black robe nodded. He waved his right hand lightly, and in an instant, more than 30 illusory figures appeared around him. Seeing the 30 illusory figures, the otherworldly spirit king's face immediately turned grim. Even the weakest of these illusory figures was at 12 Dan. Among them, there were even 5 who were at 13 Dan. Including the black robe, there were a total of 6 13 Dan experts. 3 13 Dan experts. One must know that the otherworldly demonic tribe only had 2 13 Dan experts, and there were slightly more 12 Dan experts, but that was still a total of 9. In terms of strength, the otherworldly demonic tribe was already superior to the otherworldly demonic tribe. The otherworldly spirit king's complexion turned awful. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "This is a matter between you and me. It has nothing to do with the otherworldly demonic tribe. Let's talk elsewhere." There was no reason for him to drag the otherworldly demonic tribe down with him. After all, the otherworldly demonic tribe didn't owe him anything. On the contrary, they had already helped him enough. If he were to drag the otherworldly demonic tribe down with him now, it would be a little dishonorable. In the sky, the black robe nodded. "Sure." The otherworldly spirit king opened his mouth to speak but hesitated. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Elder, this matter has nothing to do with you. I am grateful to the otherworldly demonic tribe for your hospitality and help over the past few days." The otherworldly spirit king sighed deeply. "Young friend, I am very sorry." He wanted to help Yi Xian, but the price he had to pay was simply too great. He was the head of the otherworldly demonic tribe, and he couldn't allow his emotions to affect his decisions. One must know that if he were to forcefully help Yi Xian, it would mean the deaths of countless tribesmen. Furthermore, there was no guarantee that he would be able to help them. One must know that the black robe before him was from a Tier 5 civilization. That was not an existence that the otherworldly demonic tribe could deal with at the moment. Yi Xian smiled. "Elder, we will meet again." After saying those words, he vanished from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in a vast starry sky, and the black robe and the others were already standing before him. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the verdant profound sword appeared in his hand. Looking at the black robe, he smiled and said, "Do you want to fight me one-on-one or gang up on me?" The black robe replied, "Gang up on me." As soon as he said those words, the experts behind him charged toward Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it, this isn't playing by the rules. A wisp of a savage smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth as he gazed at the few tens of people that charged towards him. In an instant, his entire body was covered in blood, and in the next moment, he suddenly slashed forward with the azure sword in his hand. Chi! A blood-red sword ray tore through the sky. The leader of the group, a 13th phase expert, punched the sword ray. Rumble. The sword ray shattered. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared before him, and he slashed down with his sword. Sword drawing technique. 2,800 stacked sword drawing techniques. This was his current limit, his true limit, because he had even used the power of his bloodline. As this sword slashed down, the 4th layer of space-time was directly shattered. Rumble. The 13th phase expert was forced back several thousand zhang. However, at this moment, a powerful force swept over and instantly engulfed Yi Xian. Bang! The sword ray shattered while Yi Xian retreated explosively for 30 kilometers. As soon as he stopped moving, an enormous palm that was 300 m long suddenly descended from the sky, and the powerful pressure it emanated crushed and obliterated the space he resided in. Yi Xian stomped his right foot on the ground and drew his sword. A ray of sword light slashed directly onto the enormous palm, causing it to tremble violently while a destructive force erupted from it. Yi Xian blocked it with his sword and activated his sword domain. Bang! The powerful force was completely blocked by his sword domain. Meanwhile, the space he resided in suddenly became illusory. Yi Xian swiftly turned around. A mysterious expert was silently chanting an incantation nearby, and then Yi Xian gradually started to descend. In the eyes of others, he was still standing on the spot, but he was actually falling madly. A spatial abyss. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly became illusory, and he returned to reality in the next moment. Black Robe's face sank when he saw this. This spatial abyss is useless against Yi Xian? The experts nearby were just about to attack again when Black Robe raised his right hand, and they immediately retreated to the side. Black Robe opened his right palm and pressed it down lightly. In an instant, countless strands of terrifying spatial pressure suddenly surged out from all around Yi Xian. The fifth layer of spacetime, the 10,000 dimensional spatial pressure. Yi Xian's face was expressionless as he allowed the spatial pressure to drown him. However, he was completely unharmed. Black Robe's eyes narrowed. How could this be possible? As he spoke, he opened his palm, and the spacetime spiritual seal showed up in his hand. The next second, the space over Yi Xian's head suddenly split open. Then a spacetime pressure that was dozens of times stronger than before swept down. As the spacetime pressure appeared, the space around him disappeared bit by bit. The sixth layer of spacetime pressure. Yi Xian still didn't dodge, and he allowed the spatial pressure to crush down on him. Boom! The area where Yi Xian was directly annihilated, but he was completely unharmed. Seeing this, Black Robe's pupils suddenly shrank. How is this possible? In the distance, Yi Xian's lips curled into a ferocious smile. I'm immune to any spatial pressure. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. A ray of sword light instantly slashed in front of Black Robe, who blocked it with his arm. Boom! The ray of sword light shattered, and at this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly engulfed him. Core sword domain. Boom! As the ray of sword light shattered, Black Robe retreated rapidly. As he retreated, a blood-red flying sword suddenly slashed at him. Black Robe once again blocked it with his arm. Pust! Black Robe's right arm was sent flying, and at the same time, the green profound sword slashed at Black Robe's chest. Bang! Black Robe retreated tens of thousands of feet away, and his body shattered. Seeing this, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. He suddenly realized that when the spatial abyss and spatial pressure were ineffective against him, these so-called Phase 13 experts in front of him weren't that strong. What was the difference between a 10th stage and a 13th stage? In terms of spacetime attainments, a 13th phase expert could directly use the 5th layer of spacetime to kill a 10th phase expert. The spacetime pressure of the 5th layer of spacetime was definitely not something a 10th phase expert could withstand. But Yi Xian was an exception. He was immune to spacetime pressure. From another perspective, if one wanted to kill Yi Xian, they could not use spacetime pressure. They could only use pure strength. Black Robe looked at Yi Xian. Why is spacetime pressure ineffective against you? A wisp of a savage smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth. Because I have a younger sister, understand? The black-robed elder. P.S. Asking for votes. Chapter 1879. Sister? Black Robe was stunned. What the hell? Yi Xian didn't waste his breath. He transformed into a blood-red ray of light and vanished on the spot. Black Robe's pupils constricted. He, who only had his soul left, couldn't resist Yi Xian at all. He hurriedly said, "Attack together." Black Robe's pupils constricted. The mysterious experts behind him charged at Yi Xian. Rumble. In an instant, the entire star region started to collapse bit by bit. When their space-time pressure was ineffective against Yi Xian, the mysterious experts had a headache. This human's sword was too terrifying. They didn't dare to go head-on against the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. It wasn't just the sword, the human's sword technique was terrifying as well. Most importantly, even if they escaped into the fifth layer of spacetime, the human could still follow them in. Although the human couldn't use the spacetime pressure of the fifth layer, he could still enter it. When they saw Yi Xian enter the fifth layer of spacetime, they were stunned. What's going on? A rank 10 expert can actually enter the fifth layer of spacetime? Most importantly, the spacetime energy of the fifth layer of spacetime was useless against this human. In the fifth layer of spacetime, Yi Xian suddenly slashed down with his sword. A blood-red ray of light instantly slashed down, and everywhere it passed, the spacetime energy of the fifth layer of spacetime dodged. In the distance, the mysterious expert's expressions were unsightly to the extreme. Meanwhile, a rank 13 expert suddenly took a step forward. He slowly clenched his right hand, and in an instant, a powerful force condensed in his fist. In the next moment, he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Rumble. The blood-red ray of light shattered, and the rank 13 expert retreated repeatedly. Meanwhile, a flying sword suddenly slashed down. The rank 13 expert's pupils constricted. He opened his palm, and a round shield suddenly appeared in front of him. Rumble. The round shield shattered. At the same time, he retreated explosively, and he retreated directly into the endless spacetime abyss. After entering the spacetime abyss, the expert's expression changed drastically. They weren't like Yi Xian who could ignore the spacetime abyss. There was an extremely terrifying spacetime gravity in the spacetime abyss, and this was what experts like them feared the most. The stronger the spacetime, the more terrifying the spacetime abyss. After entering the spacetime abyss, the expert fell at a terrifying speed. In the process of falling, his physical body began to be destroyed bit by bit. The expressions of the nearby mysterious experts changed when they witnessed this scene, and they retreated in unison. No one dared to save him. There was no way to save him. If they wanted to save him, they had to enter the spacetime abyss. But how could they dare to enter the spacetime abyss? Just like that, the expert who fell into the spacetime abyss was annihilated bit by bit in despair. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "So all of you are so afraid of the spacetime abyss." When they heard Yi Xian's words, the expressions of the remaining 4 rank 13 powerhouses changed greatly, and they didn't hesitate to leave the fifth layer of space. Originally, this place was their advantage, but at this moment, they discovered that this place had become Yi Xian's advantage. Not only could Yi Xian ignore the spacetime pressure, but he could also ignore the spacetime abyss. How could they fight against him? In the distance, Black Robe stared fixedly at Yi Xian. At this moment, he was shocked to the extreme. He hadn't imagined that not only could Yi Xian enter the fifth layer of space, he was even immune to the spacetime pressure. Without the spacetime pressure, he noticed that they didn't have any advantage when facing Yi Xian. When he thought up to here, Black Robe had the intention to retreat. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot, and Black Robe's pupils constricted. Stop him. As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 rank 13 powerhouses by his side charged at Yi Xian, whereas, Black Robe himself turned around and vanished at the end of the starry sky, and the rank 12 powerhouses retreated successively. Presently, they weren't a threat to Yi Xian at all. In the distance, Yi Xian was fighting 3 rank 13 powerhouses by himself. Rumble. Yi Xian was suddenly blasted back by a punch from one of the powerhouses, and he'd just stopped when an afterimage instantly flashed over. At the same time, an extremely terrifying force shot straight towards his face. Yi Xian stomped his right foot on the ground, and in an instant, a wave of sword light enveloped him. Core Sword Domain. Rumble. The wave of sword light shattered as soon as it appeared, but the rank 13 powerhouse was blasted back over 10 kilometers. Meanwhile, the space above Yi Xian suddenly split open, and a fist descended straight down. Yi Xian's body suddenly became illusory. In the next moment, he'd entered the 5th layer of space, and the fist had vanished without a trace. The expressions of the 3 rank 13 powerhouses instantly became unsightly when they witnessed this scene. Once Yi Xian entered the 5th layer of space, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Because they didn't dare to enter the 5th layer of space at all. If they did, then they might be sent into the space-time abyss by Yi Xian, and once they were sent into the space-time abyss, then they would definitely die. Most importantly, Yi Xian wasn't afraid of the space-time abyss. The 3 powerhouses glanced at each other, but they didn't attack again. Instead, they turned around and vanished into the distance. It was meaningless to continue fighting because they couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the end of the starry sky. After a while, he turned around and left, and it didn't take long for him to arrive at Heaven's Sanctum. Heaven's Sanctum was located in the heavenly world. As one of the 3 great powers in the heavenly spirit cosmos, Heaven's Sanctum's strength was naturally unquestionable. As soon as Yi Xian arrived in Heaven's Sanctum, the master of Heaven's Sanctum, Mu Tian, appeared in front of him. Mu Tian's expression instantly became unsightly when he saw that Yi Xian was still alive. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Let me ask you a question. Who is that black-robed man?" Mu Tian fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword. A sword howl resounded abruptly. In the distance, Mu Tian's expression changed drastically, and then he swiftly took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. At the instant this fist smashed forward, a strand of extremely terrifying spatial pressure instantly drowned Yi Xian's sword. Rumble. The entire horizon suddenly boiled, and in the next moment, Yi Xian's profound azure sword suddenly appeared in front of Mu Tian. Mu Tian's pupils shrank. My space-time pressure is actually useless against this sword? He didn't have time to think and blocked with his arms. Boom! Mu Tian's arms instantly broke and he instantly retreated 1,000 feet away. But before he could stop, a flying sword suddenly slashed at him. Mu Tian's pupils shrank. He stomped his right foot and his entire body directly entered the 5th layer of spacetime. However, in the next moment, the profound azure sword actually followed him into the 5th layer of spacetime. Mu Tian was shocked in his heart. With a thought, a golden runic shield appeared in front of him. Boom! The golden runic shield was directly smashed by the profound azure sword. But at this moment, Mu Tian had already retreated to the other side. Mu Tian's expression changed drastically when he saw that Yi Xian still wanted to attack, and he hurriedly said, "The Spirit Beast Clan." "He's from the Spirit Beast Clan." Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. "The Spirit Beast Clan that left this cosmos and became a level 5 civilization?" Mu Tian took a deep look at Yi Xian. "That's right." Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why would they target me? Moreover, if I'm not wrong, they've been targeting me the moment I arrived in this cosmos. Am I right? Mu Tian fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Next, I'll ask you a question, and you'll answer it. If you're slow, I'll slaughter your heaven's palace." Mu Tian's expression instantly changed, and he stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said again, "Answer my question just now." Mu Tian's expression was slightly unsightly. When had the heaven's palace ever been threatened like this? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his right hand, and the profound azure sword flew directly into the heaven's palace. Chi! In the blink of an eye, more than 10 bloody heads flew into the sky. Mu Tian immediately said, "I wanted to deal with the otherworldly demonic tribe, so I asked for their help. However, I didn't expect them to discover the sword in your hand." Yi Xian said, "That means that they're not targeting me on purpose." Mu Tian solemnly said, "Yes." Yi Xian fell silent. Damn it, so they're scheming after seeing my wealth. Yi Xian asked again, where is the Spirit Beast clan? Mu Tian shook his head, I don't know. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Mu Tian continued, I really don't know. I can only contact them through voice transmission talismans. As for where they are, I don't know. Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, Mu Tian solemnly said, Sir, our Heaven's Palace has no ill intentions towards you. Our initial target was the otherworldly demonic tribe, and our Heaven's Palace has no intention of interfering in the matter between you and the Spirit Beast clan. I hope that you can be magnanimous. Yi Xian pondered for a moment before he said, I have a good temper, and I'm an honest person. To me, anything can be negotiated. However, this. Do you understand what I mean? Mu Tian was stunned for a moment before he said, You. At this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and his face darkened. Damn it, you're asking for benefits. Mu Tian glanced at Yi Xian before he opened his palm, and a spatial ring appeared in his hand. There are 5 celestial crystal mines in this spatial ring. Please accept them. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the spatial ring flew into his hand. He put it away and turned to leave. Mu Tian's gaze gradually turned dark after Yi Xian left. Human, this enmity. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Mu Tian. Mu Tian's expression changed drastically. You, Yi Xian grinned, I like to annihilate everything I do. As soon as he finished speaking, the azure profound sword in his hand suddenly vanished, and a ray of light flashed. Mu Tian was horrified. At this moment of life and death, he utilized his strongest ability once more, the 5th layer of space. In an instant, boundless spatial pressure obstructed his path. However, it was like the pressure didn't exist before the azure profound sword. Hiss. The azure profound sword pierced the center of Mu Tian's forehead. Bang! Mu Tian's soul was directly absorbed. Yi Xian gazed at the innate talent below with a calm expression. In the next moment, he charged down. Since they were enemies, then he had to annihilate them. He didn't want to see his enemies take revenge if he didn't annihilate them all. Chapter 1880. When Yi Xian charged into Heaven's sanctum, cries of agony resounded throughout the entire sanctum. The experts in Heaven's sanctum didn't expect to be ambushed by a human and were caught off guard. By the time they reacted, their heads had already flown off their bodies. That was because Yi Xian's sword was simply too fast. However, Heaven's sanctum's experts reacted quickly and gathered all the experts in the sanctum. Not only that, the experts of Heaven's sanctum began summoning their ancestors. Boom! A ray of white light suddenly shot into the sky from Heaven's sanctum. In the next moment, a terrifying aura suddenly swept down from the sky, causing the entire sky to boil. At this moment, Yi Xian had already slipped away. Not only had he killed the sanctum master, he had also killed 2 of the rank 13 experts. Heaven's sanctum would soon be devoured by the otherworldly demonic tribe and the netherspirit tribe. The otherworldly demonic tribe and the netherspirit tribe would definitely not miss this opportunity. As soon as Yi Xian left, the experts of Heaven's sanctum who had just summoned their ancestors were dumbfounded. What was going on? At this moment, a woman appeared in the white light above Heaven's sanctum. The woman looked 90% similar to a human. The only difference was that she had a horn on her head. This woman was the first sanctum master of Heaven's sanctum, Mei Li. Mei Li looked at the distant horizon and opened her palm. Then, she clenched her fist and the surrounding space suddenly trembled. Gradually, a strand of consciousness floated into her palm. It was Mu Tian's consciousness. The strand of consciousness in Mei Li's hand trembled, as though it was saying something. A moment later, it completely disappeared. Mei Li fell silent for a moment before turning to the right. In the next moment, she disappeared from the spot. At the end of the endless starry sky, after confirming that no one was chasing after him, Yi Xian stopped. The moment he stopped, he suddenly turned around and saw a woman with a horn on her head. It was Mei Li. Yi Xian frowned. Heaven's sanctum? Mei Li shook her head, no. Yi Xian was a little puzzled, then you are? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian, passing by. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Is there something I can help you with? Mei Li's gaze fell onto the profound green sword in Yi Xian's hand before she said, the Spirit Beast clan has already sent a 14th phase expert, do you know about this? A 14th phase master. Yi Xian looked at Mei Li, you are from Heaven's Sanctum. If I'm not wrong, you should be the ancestor that Heaven's Sanctum just summoned. Mei Li pinched a strand of hair with 2 fingers and slowly pulled it down. She smiled and said, what a smart human. Yi Xian slowly tightened his grip on the green profound sword. Meanwhile, Mei Li suddenly said, don't worry, I'm not interested in you. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Mei Li glanced at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand, I'm interested in this sword. Yi Xian flew into a rage. I'm not as good as a sword. Mei Li blinked. Without this sword, would you be Mu Tian's opponent? Yi Xian was silent. Without the green profound sword, he might not be able to beat Mu Tian. Because the reason he could beat Mu Tian was because of the green profound sword's ability to ignore space and time. Mei Li still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, may I ask what phase Mu Tian is? And what phase am I? Mei Li was silent. Yi Xian then said, Miss, if you're interested in my sword, then you need to be clear about one thing. That is, I'm not interested in you, do you understand? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, are you interested in me? Yi Xian shook his head, I, Yi Xian, am not interested in women. Mei Li narrowed her eyes, human, you should learn to respect me. Yi Xian smiled and said, you were the one who didn't respect me first. Saying this, he turned around and left. Mei Li suddenly said, Spirit Beast race. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, do you think I'm afraid of the Spirit Beast race? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. She didn't choose to directly attack for 2 reasons. The first was because of the sword in Yi Xian's hand and the second was because of Yi Xian's identity. Yi Xian then said, Miss, let's make a deal. Are you interested? Mei Li smiled and asked, what deal? Yi Xian said, pardon me for asking, but what is Mrs. current strength? Mei Li's lips curled up, killing a 14th phase expert shouldn't be a problem. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, how big is the gap between me and a 14th phase expert? Mei Li said, if you don't use the sword in your hand, a 13th phase expert can easily kill you. If you use that sword. I can't say. Yi Xian looked at Mei Li, try it? Mei Li nodded, all right. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian's pupils shrank. He was just about to use his invincible sword domain, bang. As a muffled sound rang out, Yi Xian retreated hundreds of thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, 2 fingers touched his forehead. Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. After a moment, she withdrew her fingers and smiled, this gap seems a bit big. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, why are you so fast? Mei Li said, space-time folding. Yi Xian frowned slightly, space-time folding? Mei Li nodded, at our level, we can use space-time folding. As she spoke, she retreated thousands of meters away and waved her right hand. In an instant, the space where she and Yi Xian were directly folded. At the same time, she appeared in front of Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression became serious. Mei Li said, space-time folding. From a certain perspective, this is currently the fastest known speed. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, he was thinking that if his flying sword could be transported in this way. Mei Li smiled, you seem to be interested. Yi Xian looked at Mei Li, let's make a deal. Are you interested? Mei Li nodded, tell me about it. Yi Xian said, I can let you study my sword. In exchange, you have to follow me for 3 months. During this period, you have to protect me. Not only that, you have to teach me. Mei Li smiled, why? Yi Xian asked, How many layers of spacetime can your body enter? Mei Li said, the 6th layer. Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword entered the 7th layer of spacetime. Seeing this scene, the smile on Mei Li's face gradually disappeared. After a moment, she looked at Yi Xian. The limit of your sword is the 7th layer of spacetime? Yi Xian smiled. Take a guess? Mei Li took a deep look at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. The deal you mentioned is a deal. With that, she opened her palm and asked for the sword. However, Yi Xian kept the green profound sword. Teach me how to fold spacetime first. Mei Li looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian smiled. Is there a problem? Mei Li smiled. No problem. Yi Xian nodded. How should I address you, miss? Mei Li said, Mei Li. Yi Xian said, Miss Mei Li, let's enter Shao Ta and slowly study it. With that, he directly brought Mei Li into Shao Ta. After entering Shao Ta, Mei Li's face suddenly became solemn. The spacetime in your tower. With that, she looked at Yi Xian. 10 years in this world is 1 day outside. Yi Xian looked at Mei Li and was slightly shocked. This woman actually saw through it at a glance. Mei Li looked deeply at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, you are not simple. You know, this world is independent of the spacetime outside. Not only that, the other party also carried out a wonderful reversal of the spacetime in this tower. This is not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing is that the other party made this world have a certain connection with the outside world. With that, she was silent for a long time, then said, the spacetime path contained within it has already exceeded my understanding. I can't explain it completely. Yi Xian smiled. It's just a small matter. Don't make a fuss about it. Mei Li frowned slightly. A small matter? Young Master Yi, do you know what this means? Even the illusion race, which has reached a level 6 civilization, can't do this. Illusion race. Yi Xian blinked. You know about the illusion race? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. You know about the illusion race too? Yi Xian said with a straight face, of course. Mei Li stared at Yi Xian. I wonder what is the relationship between young Master Yi and the illusion race. Yi Xian blinked, then said, this. Do you really want to know? Mei Li nodded. I'm curious. Yi Xian smiled. To be honest, the illusion race is a subsidiary race of my Yang family. If you want to be arrogant, you should brag as much as you can. You don't have to pay taxes anyway. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mei Li's mouth twitched. Young Master Yi, are you sure? Yi Xian nodded. Very sure. Mei Li was silent. Do you know how terrifying the illusion race is? Yi Xian smiled. Is it very terrifying? Mei Li smiled. As far as I know, within the illusion race, they have 136 subsidiary races, and the lowest among them is a level 5 civilization. Not only that, but the illusion race also controls 19 super-universes. The scope of their influence is unimaginable. They are also known as the number 1 race in the universe. Young Master Yi, you said that they are a subsidiary race of your Yang family? Yi Xian was a little embarrassed. Damn, wasn't this bragging a little too much? However, it was hard to back down now, so he could only continue bragging. Yi Xian laughed. Miss Mei Li, do you know how powerful my Yang family is? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. Yang family? Forgive me for being blunt, but I've never heard of it. Yi Xian's face darkened. This dad was too low-key. Mei Li smiled and said, Young Master Yi, can you tell me more about this Yang clan? Yi Xian smiled and said, I am the Yang clan's patriarch. Oh no, my father is the patriarch. I am the Yang clan's young patriarch. Do you know my father? A man who likes to wear green robes. Mei Li shook her head. Never heard of it. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Miss Mei Li's level is too low. Mei Li, Yi Xian continued, in any case, as long as I don't die, my Yang clan will be invincible. Oh, that's not right. As long as my father doesn't die, my Yang clan will be invincible. If you don't agree, feel free to find my father. The azure-robed man, Shao Ta suddenly said, Young Master, you're really awesome. You can brag all you want, but if there's a problem, I'll take responsibility. P.S. Let me ask everyone a question. How many chapters do you think an author needs for the readers to be willing to vote for them? Chapter 1881. Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian and did not speak. She naturally did not believe Yi Xian's words. This human did not look like an honest person. However, she did not say anything else. Yi Xian did not say anything else and began to ask Mei Li about spacetime. Spacetime folding. If he could fold spacetime, coupled with his azure sword, who could stop him? In the following period of time, Yi Xian learned how to fold spacetime from Mei Li every day. It was not difficult to fold spacetime. When he folded the first spacetime, he did it very easily. However, when he folded the second spacetime, it was a little difficult. However, he still managed to do it in 3 days. When he folded the third spacetime, the difficulty increased by at least 10 times. In Mei Li's words, spacetime had density. The higher it was, the thicker the spacetime was. The thicker the spacetime was, the harder it was to fold. What was spacetime density? In order to figure this out, Yi Xian spent nearly a month. Everything had density. Spacetime density was just one of them. Not long after, Yi Xian was able to fold the third spacetime. After that, he began to familiarize himself with the fourth spacetime. While Yi Xian was practicing the fourth spacetime, Mei Li was studying his azure sword. Looking at the azure sword in her hand, Mei Li fell into deep thought. The profoundness of this sword had completely exceeded her understanding, especially the spacetime path. It was so profound that even Xiao Ta could not compare to it. Who was the one who created this? At this moment, she no longer had any desire for revenge. Even if the person behind this human was not strong enough to make the illusion clan submit, he was not someone that Heaven's sanctum could provoke. Her current goal was to slowly study the azure sword. It would be best if she could fully understand it. She believed that if she could fully understand it, she would be able to reach another level. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly walked in front of Mei Li. Miss Mei Li, I can already fold the fourth spacetime. But this fifth spacetime. Mei Li put down the azure sword and smiled. It's difficult, right? Yi Xian nodded. I realize that it's impossible to fold. Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. Do you know why the fifth spacetime is so difficult? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Mei Li said, the fifth layer of time and space supports the 10,000 dimensional time and space. It is made up of countless layers of time and space. Its density is about 100 times that of the fourth layer of time and space. Do you think it's easy for you to fold spacetime with such density? Yi Xian quickly asked, is there any other way? After pondering for a moment, Mei Li said, there are 2 methods. The first is to take it slow. After cultivating for 1,000 years, you should be able to do it. 1,000 years. Yi Xian's expression froze. In other words, it would take a few months. On second thought, it didn't seem to be too long. After all, he was in Xiao Ta's world. Mei Li continued, there's another way, and that's to fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime. Yi Xian was stunned and said, fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime? Mei Li nodded. This is more difficult, but there are many benefits. If you can fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime, not only can you fold spacetime, but you can also reverse spacetime and distort spacetime. Yi Xian blinked. Why didn't you say so earlier? Mei Li frowned slightly. What do you mean? Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and the azure sword appeared in his hand. The next moment, he directly escaped into the fifth layer of spacetime. At this moment, he had fused with the fifth layer of spacetime. Seeing this scene, Mei Li's expression instantly became solemn. As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something and looked at the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand. It's your sword. Yi Xian smiled. Yes. Mei Li stared at Yi Xian. This sword can actually allow you to fuse with spacetime. Yi Xian nodded and seemed to have thought of something. He asked, Miss Meili, under normal circumstances, how long does it take to fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime? Meili said in a low voice, at least 100,000 years. Yi Xian was stunned. 100,000 years? Are you serious? Meili was a little annoyed. Do you think it's easy to fuse with spacetime? Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. I think it's quite easy. Meili said angrily, that's because you have this sword. If you were to cultivate normally, it would be absolutely impossible without tens of thousands of years. Yi Xian looked at the azure sword in his hand and smiled. Actually, I also want to cultivate normally, but my strength doesn't allow it. Meili suddenly closed her eyes and placed her right hand on her chest. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Meili, what's wrong? Meili glanced at Yi Xian. Chest pain. Yi Xian subconsciously said, do you want me to help you rub it? After saying that, he regretted it. Damn it. What was he thinking? Meili smiled faintly. Help me rub it? Yi Xian laughed. Miss Meili, I'm just joking. I, Yi Xian, have never been interested in women. Let's get down to business. Miss Meili, now that I have fused with the fifth layer of spacetime, what should I do next? Meili glanced at Yi Xian and said lightly, it's very simple. Feel them and truly understand their nature. Since you can fuse with them, it's not difficult to do so. Yi Xian nodded and tried. Soon, a smile appeared on his face. Just like what Meili said, it was really not difficult. Of course, the premise was that he could fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime. Before long, Yi Xian started trying to fold the fifth layer of spacetime. Meili took a deep look at Yi Xian, and she was extremely shocked. She realized that she had underestimated the green profound sword. Yi Xian actually relied on this sword to fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime. Exactly how terrifying is this sword? There was no answer. Because the knowledge of spacetime contained in this sword had exceeded her current understanding. Before long, Yi Xian was able to fold the fifth layer of spacetime, but he didn't continue to fold the sixth layer of spacetime. He had to first fuse the Tao of spacetime folding with the flying sword. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword silently appeared 3 kilometers away. A smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth when he saw this. It's feasible. This spacetime folding can really be fused with the flying sword. Meili glanced at Yi Xian, and a wisp of seriousness appeared in her eyes. After Yi Xian's flying sword utilized spacetime folding, its speed could only be described as terrifying. It could be said that the sword just now was enough to instantly kill some Phase 13 experts. It was an instant kill. Moreover, Yi Xian's flying sword had another terrifying aspect, and that was the sword. This green profound sword wasn't an ordinary sword, and there was probably nothing in this world that could stop it. After this sword passed, there was no other way other than using spacetime folding to escape. No one dared to go head-on against Yi Xian's sword. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly became illusory, and the next moment, he had already entered the sixth layer of spacetime. Seeing this, Meili looked at Yi Xian as if she was looking at a monster, and her voice trembled as she said, You can even enter the sixth layer of spacetime? Yi Xian smiled and said, That's right. Why, is it very difficult to enter the sixth layer of spacetime? Meili said angrily, Are you talking like a human? Do you know how long it took me to enter the sixth layer of spacetime? A whole 160,000 years. 160,000 years. Do you know how I spent those 160,000 years? Yi Xian frowned slightly. 160,000 years, isn't that too exaggerated? Meili was so angry that her eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. Try not using this sword. Big brother, I beg you, don't try using this sword. Yi Xian said seriously, This sword was made for me by my sister, you can also get your sister to make one for you. Meili slowly closed her eyes, and she clenched her fists, and her chest heaved up and down. She couldn't help but want to hit someone. Yi Xian laughed, Miss Meili, don't be angry, I have no ill intentions. I know that cultivation is not easy, and using this sword to enter the 6th layer of spacetime is equivalent to taking a shortcut. I am not complacent because of this, because I know that it is this sword that brought me this, if not for this sword. Speaking up to this point, he thought for a moment, and then said, if not for this sword, I think I can get Qing to make another one for me. The problem is that Yi is not very big. Pfft. Mei Li was so angry that she directly spat out a mouthful of blood. This is too damn infuriating. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Mei Li suddenly said angrily, you shut up. You shut up. If you dare to speak, I will kill you. After saying that, she turned around and left. She really didn't want to listen to Yi Xian anymore. This human's words could anger her to death. Seeing Mei Li leave, Yi Xian was a little speechless. He did not dwell on the problem of whether the sword was a sword or not, but began to fuse with the 6th layer of spacetime. With the help of the Cyan Profound Sword, it was not difficult to fuse with the 6th layer of spacetime. Not long after, he fused with the 6th layer of spacetime, and then began to fold the 6th layer of spacetime. This time, it was not as simple as the last time, because the density of the 6th layer of spacetime was at least 100 times thicker than the 5th layer of spacetime. It was very, very difficult to fold the 6th layer of spacetime. Yi Xian was also a little troubled. However, he did not give up and continued to try. Time passed bit by bit. More than 10 years later, Mei Li, who was studying the Cyan Profound Sword, suddenly frowned. In the next moment, she looked up, they're here. Not far from Mei Li, Yi Xian was a little puzzled, what's here? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian, Spirit Beast Clan's experts. Yi Xian frowned. He left Xiao Ta. Just as he left Xiao Ta, the black-robed man and a group of mysterious experts appeared in front of him. The black-robed man was about to speak, but Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm. In the next moment, the black-robed man's head flew out before he could even react. At the same time, the Cyan Profound Sword directly absorbed the black-robed man's soul. All the Spirit Beast Clan's experts were stunned. Yi Xian glanced at the Spirit Beast Clan's experts, call your ancestors. I am invincible, do as you wish. Mei Li, all the Spirit Beast Clan's experts. Chapter 1882. Invincible? At will? Mei Li had a strange expression on her face. Has this human gone mad? In the boundless universe, who would dare to call themselves invincible? Invincible? Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded from the side. Yi Xian turned around and looked over. The space nearby had suddenly become illusory, and it wasn't long before a man walked out. The man had a robust figure and his face was covered in scales. At first glance, he seemed extremely ferocious. A 14th rank expert. The man smiled and said, human, say, you. The sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly vanished. In the next moment, the man's pupils constricted, and he was just about to flee. However, he was still a bit too slow, and the sword pierced through his forehead. Hiss! A fountain of blood sprayed out. The man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. At this moment, his soul had been locked onto by Yi Xian's sword. The man gazed at Yi Xian, you. Spatial folding. You're only at the 10th rank, how could you? Right at this moment, Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and the Azure Profound Sword directly absorbed the man's soul. The expressions of the Spirit Beast experts instantly changed when they witnessed this scene. This human instantly killed a 14th rank expert. Mei Li's expression was slightly serious as well. The growth of Yi Xian's strength was slightly terrifying. How long had it been? No. Mei Li suddenly recalled that even though only a few days had passed in the outside world, it had been a few dozen years in Xiao Ta's body. However, even then, the speed at which Yi Xian improved was too terrifying. Sword. Mei Li's gaze descended onto the Azure Profound Sword in Yi Xian's hand. This sword had directly increased Yi Xian's strength by over a dozen levels. In the distance, after Yi Xian killed the 14th rank expert, he didn't stop. He opened his palm, and in an instant, the heads of all the spirit beast experts flew into the air. Instant kill. With his current flying sword, even a 14th rank expert could not block it, let alone these experts below the 14th rank. After the Qingxian sword absorbed the souls of the spirit beast clan's powerhouses, Yi Xian put away the Qingxian sword. At this moment, the horizon in front of him suddenly split open and a shadow quietly appeared. Yi Xian frowned. Again? The phantom gradually solidified, and it didn't take long for a middle-aged man to appear in front of Yi Xian. The middle-aged man wore a black robe and had a horn growing out of his head. A 15th stage master. This person was the current patriarch of the spirit beast clan, Shou Gu. Shou Gu looked at Yi Xian. We underestimated you. Yi Xian smiled and said, as far as I know, I have no enmity with the spirit beasts. I wonder if you, Shou Gu suddenly interrupted Yi Xian's words. There was no enmity between us before, but isn't there enmity now? Yi Xian looked at Shou Gu and said with a smile, what you said makes sense. Shou Gu stared at Yi Xian. Do you dare to come to my spirit beast clan? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't dare. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. He didn't make a move because the person in front of him was only a phantom, not the real body. Shou Gu stared at the distant Yi Xian. His gaze was like a blade, incomparably cold. On the other side, Yi Xian directly returned to Xiao Ta. Take the initiative to go to the spirit beast clan? He wasn't an idiot. Now that he had the strength to go to the spirit beast clan and fight against the entire spirit beast clan. Wasn't that just courting death? Wouldn't it be better for him to cultivate in Xiao Ta and then kill his way over? Facing this kind of 15th stage expert, he didn't have any confidence. Not to mention 15th stage, even if it was 14th stage, if the other party was on guard, it would be difficult for him to instantly kill them. When he instantly killed that 14th stage expert, it was actually because he caught the other party off guard. And this spirit beast clan clearly had a 15th stage expert. Moreover, it was possible that there was more than one. The most important thing was that this kind of power had an ancestor or something. As they fought, they had to summon their ancestor. What a pain in the ass. This time, he had to make thorough preparations before killing his way over to the spirit beast clan. Yi Xian continued to fold the 6th layer of spacetime. If he could fold the 6th layer of spacetime, then he would have the ability to kill a 15th stage expert. During this time, Mei Li was constantly guiding Yi Xian. Therefore, the progress was quite smooth. However, the spirit beast clan clearly didn't want to give him time. Yi Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly raised his head. He frowned, so fast. At the side, Mei Li smiled and said, You're already enough to attract the attention of the spirit beast clan. Right now, they don't just want your sword, they want to get rid of you even more. Yi Xian didn't say anything. He left Xiao Ta. As soon as he left Xiao Ta, the spirit beast clan's patriarch, Shou Gu, appeared in front of him. Shou Gu didn't look at Yi Xian. Instead, he looked at Mei Li, who was by Yi Xian's side. Heaven's abode's lord, are you going to help this human? Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian, and then she smiled and said, yes. Shou Gu smiled, according to what I know, this person seems to want to destroy your heaven's abode. Mei Li smiled lightly, Patriarch Shou Gu, even though this sword is good, it's a hot potato. You have to think it through. Shou Gu nodded slightly, so you're here for this sword as well. I understand. Mei Li glanced at Shou Gu and shook her head. Understand my ass. You don't even know who you're facing. At this moment, Shou Gu suddenly turned his head, Beast desolate, I'll leave Palace Master Mei Li to you. As soon as he finished speaking, a Beastman expert suddenly walked out from the right. That Beastman expert gazed at Mei Li while a wisp of a smile arose on the corners of his mouth. Please provide me with your guidance. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure leaped up and vanished on the spot. Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian. Take care of yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished on the spot. In the next moment, both of them entered the 6th layer of space. Meanwhile, Shougu gazed at Yi Xian. Do you have anyone else? Yi Xian shook his head. No. Shougu stared at Yi Xian. That shouldn't be the case. A genius like you doesn't have anyone backing you? I don't believe it. Yi Xian smiled. Cut the crap. Do you want a one-on-one fight or a group fight? Shougu gazed at Yi Xian. One-on-one. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished. Spacetime folding. Moreover, it was the 6th layer of spacetime folding. At the instant that Shougu vanished, Yi Xian's expression instantly changed, and he immediately utilized the invincible sword domain. In terms of speed, he was definitely inferior to Shougu, so he could only choose to defend. Bang! As soon as Yi Xian utilized the invincible sword domain, a powerful force swept over, and his face instantly turned pale. Meanwhile, the azure sword in Yi Xian's hands suddenly vanished. Hiss! As the sound of something tearing resounded, Shougu retreated explosively by 300 m. Shougu glanced at his right hand, and there was a deep scar on it. Shougu raised his head to look at Yi Xian. Spacetime folding. You're only at the 10th level, so how can you? Right at this moment, Yi Xian's sword suddenly vanished once more, and Shougu's body suddenly became illusory. Hiss! The azure sword slashed through the air. In the distance, Yi Xian's pupils suddenly constricted, and he immediately utilized the core sword domain. An expanse of sword light drowned him because Shougu had directly folded spacetime and arrived in front of him. Moreover, he'd even smashed his fist towards Yi Xian. Bang! Countless rays of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian retreated explosively by over 10 kilometers. Meanwhile, Shougu suddenly took a step forward, and the expanse of spacetime where Yi Xian resided was instantly transformed into an abyss. A spacetime abyss. Merely a single move had blasted Yi Xian into a spacetime abyss. However, to Shougu's disbelief, Yi Xian, who just entered the spacetime abyss, had directly returned to the real world. He's out? Shougu was slightly stunned. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Shougu, and he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Draw the sword to decide life and death. Presently, the speed of his flying sword wasn't sufficient to kill Shougu. Since speed couldn't kill Shougu, then he could only choose strength. As Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the expanse of spacetime where Shougu resided was instantly obliterated, and even the 5th layer of spacetime was obliterated. Shougu's face was emotionless as he immediately smashed his fist forward. Head on. A ray of sword light was obliterated by Shougu's fist. At the same time, Yi Xian instantly retreated explosively by 30 kilometers. His strength had been suppressed. After Yi Xian stopped moving, he wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth, and then his eyes gradually turned blood red. Bloodline energy. A wisp of disdain arose on the corners of Shougu's mouth. You actually dared to utilize the strength of your bloodline in front of me. Could it be that you don't know that my Beast Spirit clan's bloodline is ranked at the 5th position in the world? As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, and a strand of bloodline pressure swept directly towards Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly clenched his fists tightly, and then a strand of formidable bloodline pressure surged out from within him like tidewater. It was a competition of bloodlines. However, Shougu's bloodline pressure had just come into contact with Yi Xian's bloodline pressure when it was instantly dispersed. Shougu's face was filled with disbelief when he witnessed this scene. This. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly charged over to him, and then he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A sword howl resounded as a ray of blood-red light slashed down. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Shougu's eyes, and then he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground and smashed his fist forward. A single punch. Rumble. An expanse of blood-red light was blasted apart, and then Yi Xian's figure was blasted flying. However, Shougu suddenly charged forward and stomped his foot forward. Bang! The space in the surroundings collapsed. Yi Xian hurriedly utilized the sword domain. However, even the sword domain wasn't able to resist the force of Shogu's kick. Rumble. The sword domain was destroyed, and then Yi Xian was instantly blasted 30 kilometers away. He just stopped when the green profound sword in his hands suddenly vanished. Shogu's eyes narrowed slightly as he raised his arm horizontally to block the attack. Bang! The green profound sword was blasted flying. However, Shogu's right arm was directly split apart, and he was pushed 300 m back. After he stopped, Shogu glanced at the green profound sword in front of Yi Xian, and he spoke with slight excitement, "What a good sword." Yi Xian lightly waved the green profound sword in his hand, and a wisp of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of his mouth. He couldn't defeat him. Facing this kind of 15th phase super expert, he still couldn't beat, especially this kind of 15th phase expert who also had a powerful physical body. At this moment, an old man in a long robe appeared in front of Shogu. The old man glanced at Yi Xian in the distance and said, "Patriarch, this person isn't simple." Behind him, Shogu laughed savagely, "It doesn't matter. No matter how strong the person behind him is, how strong can he be? What is the human race? A piece of trash that can't even be considered a rank 2 civilization. P.S. Every time more people vote and reward, I get a little carried away. Everyone, please don't vote and reward. Let me calm down. My income has plummeted, so I'll work hard." Chapter 1883. The Human Race? Shogu really looked down on the human race. After all, the human race was not even a level 2 civilization, while the spirit beast race was a level 5 civilization. Next to Shogu, the old man in a long robe said in a deep voice, "The human race is indeed weak, but the sword in this person's hand is extraordinary." If the person who made this sword is a human, Shogu immediately shook his head, "Absolutely impossible. The spacetime Tao contained in this sword is even above the spacetime spirit seal. How could a mere human race create such a divine sword? This human must have obtained this sword by luck." Saying that, he looked at Yi Xian, "Everything will be known after I capture this person." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly grasped at Yi Xian in the distance with his right hand. Boom! In an instant, the spacetime where Yi Xian was in suddenly became a cage. 6 spacetime cages. Obviously, he wanted to capture Yi Xian alive. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned into a sword light and disappeared. He just disappeared. Seeing this, Shogu was stunned. He ran away. This human ran away from his spacetime cage. When he came back to his senses, Yi Xian had completely disappeared. Shogu's face instantly became extremely gloomy. "I was careless." Saying that, he turned his head and looked to the side. "Search for this person with all your strength." Understood. Behind Shogu, countless spirit beast experts chased into the distance. Shogu seemed to think of something. He suddenly turned his head and looked to the side. There, Meili, who was fighting with the spirit beast experts, had stopped. Shogu looked at Meili. "Palace Master Meili, your doppelganger has such strength. This proves that your original body has reached level 15. An expert like you should not be stupid. It is not wise for you to help a human and become enemies with the spirit beast race." Meili smiled and said, "Shogu, let's wait and see." Saying that, her body gradually became illusory. She was going to disappear. She was originally a doppelganger. It was not easy for her to be able to drag on with a super expert until now. The long-robed elder beside Shogu said in a deep voice, "I feel that this matter is not simple. Since Palace Master Meili is helping Yi Xian, I'm afraid." Shogu suddenly said, "She's just like us. She wants Yi Xian's sword." The long-robed old man still wanted to say something, but Shogu spoke again. "Elder Shou Yen seems to be very afraid of this human." The old man called Shou Yen spoke in a deep voice, "I just feel that this human isn't simple. We can't underestimate him." Shogu glanced at Shou Yen and said with a smile, I know he's not simple, but does our spirit beast clan have a way out now? No. Since we've already become enemies, then we should naturally exterminate them and not leave any future troubles. With that, he turned around and left. The long-robed old man sighed softly. His intuition told him that this human was not normal. If he wasn't careful, the spirit beasts would face a great disaster. In this vast universe, although the spirit beast race was a level 5 civilization, there were many other level 5 civilizations. There were even the legendary level 6 civilizations. The stronger they were, the more careful they had to be. The slightest bit of carelessness could consign them to eternal damnation. Shou Yen sighed softly, turned around, and left. On the other side, Yi Xian directly arrived at the 7th layer of spacetime. After he entered the 7th layer of spacetime, it was absolutely impossible for Shogu and the other experts to find him. After all, Shogu was only a level 15 expert. At most, he could only enter the 6th layer of spacetime. The 7th layer of spacetime was completely dark. Strictly speaking, the 7th layer of spacetime was formed by a spacetime black hole. The pressure here was more than 100 times stronger than the pressure in the 6th layer of spacetime. If it wasn't for the profound azure sword, he wouldn't have dared to enter. With his current strength, he was simply no different from an ant here. Not to mention him, even if the desolate antiquity came here, he would probably be wiped out in an instant. It could be said that the 6th layer of spacetime and the 7th layer of spacetime were worlds apart. This made Yi Xian's mood somewhat solemn. He could still face a level 15 expert. However, if he encountered an expert who could enter the 7th layer of spacetime, he definitely wouldn't be able to fight back. After a moment, Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and returned to Xiao Ta's body. Then, he entered the 6th layer of spacetime and continued to fold the 6th layer of spacetime. Only by folding the 6th layer of spacetime would he have a chance to kill a level 15 expert. Otherwise, he would be crushed by his opponent in terms of speed. As for the 7th layer of spacetime, he didn't even think about it. It was definitely not something he could touch now. He had to admit that he was in a bit of a hurry. This was because he knew that if his opponent couldn't find him, he would definitely think of other ways. For example, he would look for the spirit of 9 and use them or even the human race to threaten him. He had already figured out these enemies' tricks. Therefore, he had to race against time. Otherwise, he might fall into a passive position. Outside, somewhere in the starry sky, Shogu sat cross-legged in the starry sky. Behind him stood more than a dozen super experts of the Spirit Beast clan. He kept recalling the battle with Yi Xian in his mind. Finally, he came to a conclusion. The reason why Yi Xian was able to fight with him for so long was because of that sword. If not for that sword, his spacetime suppression would have been enough to kill Yi Xian. However, because of that sword, his spacetime suppression, spacetime cage, and spacetime abyss were all ineffective against Yi Xian. Thinking of this, Shogu's expression gradually turned grave. At this moment, he realized that the sword was even more terrifying than he had imagined. How did that human obtain this sword? Shogu's brows knitted together deeply. However, the doubt in his eyes soon turned into excitement. If that sword was in his hands, his battle prowess would increase by at least several times. Moreover, he might even be able to use that sword to reach a higher level. At that time, he would be able to bring the otherworldly demonic race to a new height, far surpassing their ancestors. Thinking of this, Shogu immediately stood up. He turned to the side and asked, "Is there any news of that Yi Xian?" Shou Yen shook his head. That person seems to have evaporated into thin air. There's no news of him at all. Shogu frowned slightly. You can't find him? Shou Yen nodded. I can't find him. Shogu fell silent for a moment before he said, according to what I know, that person seems to have a close relationship with the otherworldly demonic race. Shou Yen glanced at Shogu. Patriarch, what do you mean? Shogu said, to the otherworldly demonic race. After saying this, he vanished on the spot. It didn't take long for Shogu to arrive at the otherworldly spirit world with a group of spirit beast experts. In the sky above the otherworldly spirit world, the otherworldly spirit king glanced at Shogu and the others, and then he said, "King Shogu, I wonder where." Shogu interrupted the otherworldly spirit king. "Where is that Yi Xian?" The otherworldly spirit king shook his head. "I don't know." Shogu looked at the otherworldly spirit king. "You don't know?" The otherworldly spirit king said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency, our otherworldly spirit race really doesn't know where young Master Yi is." Although young Master Yi was on good terms with our otherworldly spirit race, when he left our otherworldly spirit race, Shogu suddenly interrupted the otherworldly spirit king. "I don't want to listen to such nonsense. Today, if Yi Xian doesn't appear, our beast spirit race will trample the otherworldly demonic race." The otherworldly spirit king's face turned slightly unsightly when he heard this. "King Shogu, our otherworldly spirit race really doesn't know where young Master Yi is. You have to be reasonable." "Reasonable?" A wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of Shogu's mouth. "Otherworldly spirit king, you're truly pitiful. Do you know what's the most useless thing in this world? It's the reason you spoke of earlier. In this world, only one's fist matters. Only the party with the bigger fist is reasonable. You actually want to reason with me? How laughable. I'll tell you the truth as well. I know that your otherworldly spirit race doesn't know where Yi Xian is, and I intend to use the lives of your otherworldly spirit race to force Yi Xian out." The faces of the otherworldly spirit king and the other experts turned extremely unsightly when they heard this. "This is clearly bullying you." Thinking so, the otherworldly spirit king turned to King Shogu and laughed heartily. "King Shogu, our otherworldly spirit race actually knows where young Master Yi is. However, I refuse to tell you." King Shogu narrowed his eyes. "Kill. Leave none alive." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the beast spirit race behind him charged forward. Below, the otherworldly spirit king suddenly roared furiously, "All clansmen, heed my command. Fight to the death. Fight to the death." As he spoke, he charged forward. Behind him, countless experts of the otherworldly spirit race also charged forward. In the sky, the beast Gu King was just about to attack. Right at this moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and then he turned around. A ray of light suddenly flashed not too far away, and then the head of a spirit beast expert flew into the air in the next moment. The sword ray dissipated, and Yi Xian appeared before everyone. Seeing Yi Xian appear, the otherworldly spirit king immediately heaved a sigh of relief. If young Master Yi still didn't appear, the otherworldly demonic race would probably be wiped out today. Because at present, the otherworldly demonic race was no match for the beast spirit race. Seeing Yi Xian, a smile appeared on the King Shogu's lips. "Yi Xian, you sure are loyal to your friends. You really showed up." Yi Xian glanced at the otherworldly spirit king by the side. "Senior spirit king, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble." The otherworldly spirit king hurriedly shook his head. "No, no. Young Master Yi, there's no need to stand on ceremony. I only hate the fact that our otherworldly demonic race is too weak to help young Master Yi." Sigh. Yi Xian smiled and said, "This is my own matter. How can I trouble you?" As he spoke, he looked at the King Shogu and waved the azure profound sword in his hand. Then, he said, "You want this sword?" The King Shogu gazed at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, you should be aware that your strength isn't worthy of this sword. Moreover, as far as I know, you're a smart person. You should be aware that it isn't a good thing for you to possess such a divine sword with your strength and status. If you're smart, then hand over the sword. If you do, then I can spare your life." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Really?" The King Shogu stared at Yi Xian. "Really?" Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, "Give me 3 days to consider." 3 days. The king Shou Gu frowned. He was about to speak when Shou Yan spoke abruptly. Don't agree to his request. He's trying to buy time. The king Shou Gu gazed at Yi Xian. No. Yi Xian glanced at Shou Yan and said, King Shou Gu, rumor has it that you're invincible. I'd like to experience it for myself. Obviously, he wanted to fight one-on-one. The corners of Beast Gu's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. He was just about to speak when Shou Yan, who was beside him, suddenly said, Don't agree with him. Patriarch, let's attack together. He has no chance at all. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1884. Attack together? Yi Xian glanced at Shou Yan. Motherfucker. This geezer is really bad. Meanwhile, Shou Gu suddenly said, Why do this? As he spoke, he walked towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian, since you want to fight me in single combat, then I'll fulfill your wish. Shou Yan sighed softly when he heard Shou Gu. Yi Xian gazed at Shou Gu and smiled, as expected of the king of a clan. You're bold. I, Yi Xian, admire you. Shou Gu smiled, cut the crap. Let's fight. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward, and then he smashed his fist forward. Bang! A fist swept through the surroundings, and the formidable force contained within it caused space to be obliterated everywhere it passed. Physical strength. Besides being skilled in the spacetime Dao, Shou Gu's physical strength was extremely terrifying as well. Yi Xian didn't think too much about it. He opened his palm, and then the green profound sword flew out. Bang! A ray of light slashed onto the fist, and it was instantly slashed into pieces. Meanwhile, Shou Gu suddenly appeared above Yi Xian, and then he suddenly stomped his foot down. Rumble. The space around Yi Xian instantly collapsed. Yi Xian directly utilized the invincible sword domain, and it forcefully protected him. However, Shou Gu smashed his fist down once more. Rumble. The invincible sword domain collapsed, and then Yi Xian was instantly blasted 3 kilometers away. Moreover, he'd entered the 6th level of the spatial abyss when his figure stopped moving. After Yi Xian entered the 6th level of the spatial abyss, Shou Gu didn't attack again, and he just watched. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's figure became ethereal, and he returned to reality in the next moment. Shou Gu's eyes narrowed when he witnessed this scene, and they were filled with excitement. The sword. Yi Xian's sword was able to bring him out of the spatial abyss. Needless to say, at this moment, Shou Gu was both excited and shocked. He was excited because if this sword was in his hands, then the might it could display was simply unimaginable. He was shocked because this sword was actually so terrifying and was capable of bringing a living being out from a spatial abyss. This was truly terrifying. Without thinking too much, Shou Gu looked at Yi Xian and took a step forward. With this step, his entire body arrived in front of Yi Xian. At the same time, a powerful force instantly blasted towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian blocked with his sword. Boom! Yi Xian was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away along with his sword. When he came to a stop, a trickle of blood slowly flowed from the corner of his mouth. Shou Gu looked at Yi Xian with disdain. Yi Xian, is this all you've got? Yi Xian wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and said, I surrender. Surrender. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Including that beast Gu King. Shou Gu was stunned for a moment, and then he roared with laughter. Surrender? If you surrendered just now, then I might have considered it. But it's too late now. Right at this moment, the sword in Yi Xian's hands suddenly vanished. It was a spatial fold. Moreover, it was the 6th spatial fold. This sudden and unexpected event caused Shou Gu's expression to instantly change drastically. Because it was the 6th spatial fold and coupled with the fact that he'd underestimated Yi Xian earlier, he'd never imagined that Yi Xian would actually be able to fold the 6th spatial fold. So, he could only defend passively right now. Shou Gu instinctively raised his arms in front of him to defend. Sword arrival. Bang! Everyone watched as Shou Gu's arms were chopped off, and then his body was blasted into pieces. As Shou Gu's soul retreated explosively, Yi Xian pressed his fingers together and guided lightly, and then the green profound sword flew forward. Hiss! The others hadn't even recovered from their shock when the green profound sword pierced through the center of Shou Gu's forehead. Bang! The green profound sword instantly absorbed Shou Gu's soul and didn't give him any chance. The countenances of all the beast spirit race experts instantly turned pale when they witnessed this scene. This human killed King Shou Gu. In the distance, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. A short moment later, he opened his palm, and the green profound sword flew back into his grasp. The green profound sword trembled slightly as Little Soul said excitedly, "Young master, it's a great tonic." Yi Xian grinned, "There's still a lot." Shou Yan stared fixedly at Yi Xian, "You acted weak first, and then you took them by surprise and executed a killer move to kill them in a single strike. Human, how scheming of you." Yi Xian gazed at Shou Yan and the others, and he didn't waste his breath at all. The green profound sword in his hand suddenly flew forward. At the instant he did, Shou Yan had already appeared over 30 kilometers away. His sword pierced through the air. Yi Xian fell silent when he witnessed this scene. Just as he'd expected, it would be very difficult for him to instantly kill such an expert if they were on guard. Meanwhile, Shou Yan suddenly said, "Retreat." As soon as he finished speaking, he and the other beast spirit race experts turned around and vanished into the starry sky. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. In the next moment, he immediately pursued them. Beast Spirit World. The Beast Spirit World was located in the spirit realm, and there were many powerful forces in the boundless spirit realm. All of them were rank 5 civilizations, and the beast spirit race was just one of them. After Shou Yan led all the beast spirit race experts back to the beast spirit race, he seized the opportunity to become the patriarch of the beast spirit race because Shou Gu had perished. Within the beast spirit race's main hall, Shou Yan immediately gathered all the beast spirit race's experts. At the same time, all the grand formations of the beast spirit race were activated, and even some elders who were in seclusion were summoned. Within the main hall, Shou Yan glanced at all the experts present, and then he said, "Immediately notify the entire spirit realm. Tell them that Yi Xian possesses a divine artifact that surpasses the 6th level of spacetime. Not only will he be able to ignore the pressure of spacetime and the abyss of spacetime, he can even enter the 7th level of spacetime." Understood. One of the beast spirit race experts retreated. Shou Yan said, "Elder Shou Qian, go personally to the barbarian spirit race and tell them that if they're willing to help our beast spirit race, then our beast spirit race is willing to submit." Submit. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of all the beast spirit race experts within the hall changed drastically. Elder Shou Qian said in a low voice, "Patriarch Shou Yan, Yi Xian is only one person." "We." Shou Yan slowly closed his eyes. "We can't stop him." Shou Qian said in a low voice, "We can still summon the ancestor." Shou Yan glanced at Shou Qian. "The patriarch is already dead. If we summon the ancestor, then our beast spirit race won't have any trump cards left. Even if we manage to defeat Yi Xian, our beast spirit race will immediately be divided up by the other races. At that time, we won't even have the qualifications to bargain. Our beast spirit race will have the qualifications to bargain with the barbarian spirit race if we summon the ancestor. Even if we submit to the barbarian spirit race's ancestor, our beast spirit race will have the qualifications to talk to the barbarian spirit race as long as we have this card. Moreover, once we submit to the barbarian spirit race's ancestor, then we'll be able to draw trouble to them. The barbarian spirit race is a subordinate race of the illusion ancestor, so once Yi Xian goes against them, then it's equivalent to going against the illusion ancestor. If he goes against the illusion ancestor, then no matter how formidable the power behind him is, he'll still die for sure." Shou Qian hesitated for a moment when he heard this, and then he said, "Does he have a formidable power behind him?" Shou Yan said in a light voice, "How could such a person possibly grow to such an extent if he doesn't have any backing?" Shou Qian intended to say something else, but a beast spirit race expert suddenly appeared within the hall. "Patriarch, Yi Xian has arrived." Shou Yan's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he gazed at Shou Qian. "Head to the barbarian spirit race right now." Shou Qian nodded. "Understood." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished from within the hall. In the sky above the beast spirit world, Yi Xian stood with his sword in hand. He'd chased all the way here. He naturally wouldn't let this matter rest. Meanwhile, Shou Yan suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and he gazed at Yi Xian and said, "Young Master Yi, this is a misunderstanding. My beast spirit race is willing to compensate you for your losses." Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "A misunderstanding? What a joke." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm. Shou Yan's expression instantly changed drastically, and he was just about to attack when over a dozen heads suddenly shot into the sky. Yi Xian gazed at Shou Yan and smiled. "I, Yi Xian, don't like to cause trouble, but I'll definitely annihilate anyone who dares offend me." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward. Hiss! An expanse of blood-red sword light flashed through the battlefield. Shou Yan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Activate the formation." As soon as he finished speaking, the space around Yi Xian warped. At the same time, a huge barrier of light enveloped the entire beast spirit world, and then countless strange talismans shot towards Yi Xian from within the barrier of light. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly as he stood within the warped space, and then he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Bang! Space shattered apart, and the strange talismans in the surroundings instantly vanished. Shou Yan's face instantly fell when he witnessed this scene. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when a voice suddenly resounded from afar. "Wait!" Shou Yan instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this voice. "An expert from the barbarian spirit race has arrived." Yi Xian turned around and saw a middle-aged man walking over slowly from afar. He wasn't a human, but his appearance was actually 90% similar to a human. However, he was much stronger than a human. The barbarian spirit race expert sized Yi Xian up, and then he said, "Are you a human?" Yi Xian smiled, "Yes." That expert gazed at Yi Xian. "I don't care about the enmity between you and the beast spirit race, but from this moment onward, the beast spirit race has submitted to my barbarian spirit race. Now, they're a subordinate race of my barbarian spirit race. Understand?" Yi Xian nodded, "I understand." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly slashed with his sword. Hiss! The head of that expert from the barbarian spirit race flew into the air. All the experts of the beast spirit race were stunned. This human actually dared to kill an expert from the barbarian spirit race? Shou Yan instantly started laughing when he witnessed this scene. Now, enmity had been formed between the human and the barbarian spirit race. Yi Xian turned around to gaze at Shou Yan. Shou Yan spoke in a low voice, "Do you know anything about the barbarian spirit race?" Yi Xian grinned, "It wouldn't be too late to kill them first." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Shou Yan narrowed his eyes, and he was about to retreat when a powerful force suddenly descended from the sky. Following that, a sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was forced to retreat. A barbarian spirit person stood in front of Shou Yan. Barbarian spirit race's great elder, Man Tian. A 15th phase master. Man Tian looked at the nearby Yi Xian and said, "The bones of the last one who didn't give my barbarian spirit race any face have already turned to ashes." At the side, Shou Yan hurriedly fanned the flames. "Grand Elder Man Tian, there is a mysterious force behind this person, and it is not simple. Don't be careless." A smile appeared at the corner of Man Tian's mouth. "Comparing backgrounds? My barbarian spirit race loves to compare backgrounds the most." Saying this, He opened his right hand and made an inviting gesture. Human, don't say that my spirit beast race is bullying you. Come, call someone over. P.S. I went back to my hometown for Chinese New Year. Too many people came to propose marriage. Vexation. My house's doorsill is about to be trampled open. Chapter 1885. Call for help. The barbarian spirit race had the ability and confidence to do so because their strength was the #1 race in the entire spirit region. Moreover, the barbarian spirit race had an extraordinary power standing behind them, and it was the illusion race. The illusion race was a genuine level 6 civilization. Even though it was only a rank higher than the barbarian spirit race, it was a gap that the barbarian spirit race would never be able to surpass. The difference between a rank 5 and a rank 6 civilization was like the difference between the heavens and the earth. Man Tian gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. Human, if no one is going to call for help, then I will. As soon as he finished speaking, the space in the surroundings suddenly trembled. In the next moment, numerous terrifying auras swept out from the surroundings, and then over 100 extraordinary experts appeared here. There were actually 5 at the 15th rank amongst them. Moreover, there were a total of 49 at the 14th rank, and the weakest amongst the rest was at the 13th rank. Shou Yan's face fell when he saw this lineup. The barbarian spirit race had mobilized such a large force, so they were obviously determined to obtain the divine treasure in Yi Xian's possession. Meanwhile, Man Tian suddenly glanced at the surroundings and smiled. Everyone, this person killed members of my barbarian spirit race, so my barbarian spirit race is absolutely irreconcilable with him. This is a personal enmity between my barbarian spirit race and him, so I hope that all of you won't interfere. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from the shadows. If your barbarian spirit race wants to take that human sword for yourself, then just say it. Why be so hypocritical? Man Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly turned around and punched. Bang! Space suddenly collapsed over 1 kilometer away, and then an afterimage retreated explosively for 5,000 kilometers. Man Tian glanced at the afterimage and smiled. I said that because I wanted to give you some face. Since you don't want to give me face, then don't blame my barbarian spirit race. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts from the barbarian spirit race vanished on the spot, and the afterimage in the distance was instantly obliterated. The experts in the surroundings were shocked when they witnessed this scene. The barbarian spirit race was really overbearing. However, no one dared to resist. The strength of a single barbarian spirit race wasn't invincible. What they truly feared was the illusion race that stood behind the barbarian spirit race. Back then, the barbarian spirit tribe wasn't that strong. The reason they suddenly rose was because a woman from the barbarian spirit tribe married into the illusory tribe. From then on, the barbarian spirit race's status rose with the tide, and no force in the entire spirit realm dared to not give them face. As time passed, the barbarian spirit race also grew stronger and stronger. Of course, it also grew more and more domineering. However, none of the forces dared to provoke them. In the dark, some experts had already retreated. They were also interested in the sword in Yi Xian's hand. Not only could it ignore the pressure of time and space and the abyss of time and space, it could also enter the 7th layer of time and space. Even the entire spirit realm did not have such a divine item. However, with the barbarian spirit tribe present, they knew that they had no hope at all. A smile appeared on Man Tian's face when he saw the experts hiding in the surrounding scatter. He looked at Shou Yan, who was not far away. Shou Yan immediately said, Great Elder Man Tian, from now on, my spirit beast race will follow the lead of the barbarian spirit race. Man Tian was very satisfied and slightly nodded. The patriarch has already said that although your spirit beast race has submitted to my barbarian spirit race, my barbarian spirit race will not interfere in your spirit beast race's matters. However, if my barbarian spirit race has any orders in the future, Shou Yan quickly said, my spirit beast race will definitely obey. Man Tian smiled. Very good. After saying that, he turned his head and looked at Yi Xian, who who was not far away. "Human, I know that you were healing a moment ago. Have you healed your injuries?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'm fine." Man Tian smiled and said, "Don't say that my barbarian spirit race is bullying you. You can call for more people, as many as you want." However, Yi Xian shook his head. "No need." After saying that, he suddenly disappeared. Space-time folding. In the distance, Man Tian slightly narrowed his eyes and raised his arm to block. Boom! Man Tian retreated several thousand feet, and just as he stopped, Yi Xian appeared in front of him once again. In an instant, a wave of sword light directly submerged him. Square-inch sword domain. Chi 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 chi. Tearing sounds resounded ceaselessly from within the wave of sword light. Right at that moment, a powerful force suddenly erupted from within the wave of sword light. The sword light shattered, and a figure retreated repeatedly. It was Man Tian. When Man Tian stopped, the expressions of all the experts became solemn. Because at this moment, Man Tian's entire body was covered in dense sword scars. It was as if he had been dismembered, and it was extremely shocking. In the distance, Shou Yan stared fixedly at the distant Yi Xian, and the depths of his eyes were solemn. At that moment, he suddenly discovered that Yi Xian's sword wasn't only powerful, but his sword skills were also terrifying. Who was this human? The solemn expression in Shou Yan's eyes gradually turned into worry. In front of Yi Xian, Man Tian glanced at his own body, and in the next moment, his expression became ferocious. He looked at Yi Xian and said, "Human, you have successfully angered me, you." At that moment, a sword suddenly slashed down, and Man Tian's voice came to an abrupt stop. Man Tian raised his arm to block. Bang! The sword light shattered, and Man Tian was blasted 3 kilometers back. As soon as he stopped, his right arm split open and blood sprayed out. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had suddenly vanished on the spot. Man Tian was shocked, and he swiftly raised his left hand to block before spinning it. Cage. As soon as his voice resounded, Yi Xian suddenly stopped because the area of spacetime he was in had become a spacetime cage. Meanwhile, Man Tian said, "Fall." As soon as he finished speaking, the spacetime where Yi Xian was in had suddenly transformed into an abyss, and Yi Xian fell rapidly. A wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of Man Tian's mouth, but it quickly froze because Yi Xian had suddenly returned to reality. Man Tian's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw this, and he seemed to have thought of something. His gaze descended onto the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. "It's your sword." Yi Xian didn't waste his breath, and he just raised his hand and slashed. Hiss! A strand of sword light tore through the battlefield. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through Man Tian's eyes. He took a step forward and punched out with his left hand. The powerful force contained within his fist directly tore the space in front of him apart, and Yi Xian's sword light was instantly destroyed. But right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above Man Tian and slashed with his sword. Drawing the sword to decide life and death. The powerful force of this sword slash instantly tore space apart. Man Tian's pupils constricted. He didn't dare to take Yi Xian's sword head-on, because Yi Xian's sword could break through his defenses. The instant Yi Xian's sword descended, Man Tian's figure trembled. Space folded, and he directly appeared 3 kilometers away. He had just stopped when a flying sword slashed at him. Its speed was extremely fast. Because this was also a spatial folding technique. Man Tian was greatly alarmed. At this moment, he had nowhere to dodge and could only face it head-on. He didn't have time to think, and he used his left hand to block. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, the swords on Man Tian's left hand shattered, and he retreated explosively. In the distance, Yi Xian was about to attack again, but right at this moment, his expression suddenly changed, and he swiftly turned around. At this moment, a fist smashed towards him like a tsunami. Yi Xian hurriedly withdrew his sword to defend himself. Rumble. Along with an explosion, the space where Yi Xian was instantly transformed into a pitch-black space-time black hole. At the instant that Yi Xian fell into the space-time black hole, the profound azure sword in his hand trembled violently and hurriedly brought him out of the space-time black hole. After coming out, Yi Xian turned around and saw a man from the barbarian spirit tribe standing not too far away. He wore an embroidered robe, had a tall figure, and had long hair that draped over his shoulders. He emanated an extremely terrifying pressure. Man Qing, the current patriarch of the barbarian spirit tribe. Man Qing sized up Yi Xian, and then his gaze descended onto the profound azure sword in his hand. Good sword. Meanwhile, Man Tian walked over to Man Qing's side. Patriarch. Man Qing looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "You possess such strength at such a young age, so I presume you're not an ordinary person. Since you're not an ordinary person, then you should know of my barbarian spirit tribe. Since you know of my barbarian spirit tribe, why do you dare to become enemies with my barbarian spirit tribe?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "It seems that your barbarian spirit tribe wants to become enemies with me, right?" Man Qing shook his head. "My barbarian spirit tribe wants to kill you because it thinks highly of you. What qualifications do you have to become enemies with my barbarian spirit tribe?" Yi Xian gave him a thumbs up. Amazing. Man Qing smiled and said, "No matter who you are or where you came from, today, I will shatter your body, imprison your soul, and let you be burned by spirit flames for eternity. I want the world to understand that those who offend my barbarian spirit tribe can only beg for death." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distance, Yi Xian's pupils constricted, and he swiftly drew his sword and slashed. Rumble. Yi Xian was directly sent flying several thousand feet away, but before he could stop, several afterimages suddenly swept over. Man Tian and the other 15th stage barbarian spirit tribe experts also attacked. Yi Xian quickly displayed his invincible sword domain. Bang! As soon as the invincible sword domain appeared, it collapsed and his whole body was directly thrown into the space-time abyss. Just as he escaped from the space-time abyss, a fist mark suddenly attacked him. Man Qing. Yi Xian raised his sword horizontally to block it. Bang! The profound cyan sword in Yi Xian's hand violently trembled, and he rapidly retreated. At this time, 15th stage barbarian spirit tribe experts suddenly rushed towards him from all directions, not giving him a chance to catch his breath. The retreating Yi Xian's eyes flashed with hostility, and he suddenly slashed forward with his sword. Square-inch sword domain. Bang! A wave of sword light instantly submerged him and the 15th stage barbarian spirit tribe experts. There was a moment of silence. Bang! The sword light shattered, and a figure flew out. It was Yi Xian. When Yi Xian came to a stop, his left arm had already disappeared. Not only that, but his entire body was covered in cracks and bones could be seen in many places. He was in an extremely miserable state. In the distance, Man Qing looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Come, call him over." Right at this moment, the space above Man Qing suddenly trembled violently. Man Qing frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene. Someone's really coming? It didn't take long for that space to turn into a vortex, and a middle-aged man walked out from within the vortex. When he saw who it was, Man Qing burst into laughter. "Ha! Human, your men aren't here, but mine are." The middle-aged man in front of him was the patriarch of the illusory tribe. After the illusion tribe leader came out, he scanned the surroundings. Very quickly, his gaze landed on Yi Xian. When he saw Yi Xian's appearance, the illusion tribe leader's legs softened and he almost knelt down. Chapter 1886. At this moment, the patriarch of the illusion race was astounded to the extreme. Why is young Master Yi in such a miserable state? Meanwhile, Man Qing walked over to the patriarch and bowed respectfully. "Patriarch Huan Ming, what are you doing here?" "The illusion race?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the surroundings was stunned. The patriarch of the illusion race? A grade 6 civilization? Huan Ming paid no attention to Man Qing, and he just suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed, and he was about to attack. Meanwhile, Huan Ming hurriedly said, Yi. Young Master Yi, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. He's on my side. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Man Qing and Man Tian were petrified on the spot. On my side? What's going on? Yi Xian gazed at Huan Ming and frowned. On your side? Meanwhile, Man Qing suddenly appeared in front of Huan Ming, and he hurriedly said, Patriarch Huan Ming, do you know this human? Huan Ming suddenly turned around and slapped him. Bang! Man Qing didn't even have time to react before his body was blasted into pieces. Everyone here was speechless. Huan Ming glanced coldly at Man Qing, who was slightly stunned. What human? He's called Young Master Yi. Young Master Yi. At this moment, Man Qing's mind had gone blank, and the faces of the other experts of the barbarian spirit race had turned ghastly pale. As for Shou Yan, his figure had even started to tremble. Huan Ming bowed slightly to Yi Xian and spoke in a trembling voice, Young Master Yi, what happened? Yi Xian spoke solemnly, Are you sure you didn't mistake me for someone else? Huan Ming hesitated for a moment, and then he withdrew a portrait. The person in the portrait was Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned slightly when he saw the portrait. What's this? Huan Ming hurriedly said, A senior gave it to me. It's that senior in a plain dress. Yi Xian was stunned. Huan Ming knew that he wasn't mistaken when he saw the expression on Yi Xian's face. Yi Xian suddenly glanced at Man Qing. The barbarian spirit race is a subordinate race of your illusion race? Huan Ming nodded. Yes. One of our clan's elders has formed a marriage alliance with the barbarian spirit tribe. Therefore. As he said that, he seemed to have thought of something and his pupils suddenly shrank. Young Master Yi, were they the ones who attacked you? Yi Xian nodded. They ganged up on me. You even wanted to exterminate my entire clan. Huan Ming was stunned, and then he hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, my illusory race isn't related to the barbarian spirit race at all. It has nothing to do with me. Yi Xian was speechless. The expressions of Man Qing and the others became unsightly to the extreme when they heard Huan Ming. Of course, they were terrified to the extreme as well. Who was this human in front of him? How could the patriarch of the illusion race be so humble? On the other side, Shou Yan was about to faint. In front of Huan Ming, Yi Xian's body suddenly twitched. Huan Ming's expression changed drastically when he saw this, and he hurriedly said, Young Master Yi. What's wrong? Yi Xian rolled his eyes. I feel like I'm going to die. Senior, if I die, please help me tell my younger sister and ask her to avenge me. Huan Ming's face instantly turned pale. If young Master Yi really dies here, then I don't even dare to think about it. Huan Ming swiftly turned his head. Guards. As soon as he finished speaking, the skies suddenly darkened, and then countless experts walked out from the starry sky. The experts of the illusion race. Powerful pressure smashed down from the starry sky, and it caused the entire world to tremble. The expressions of all the experts here became extremely solemn when they witnessed this scene. Has the illusion race mobilized its entire race? Huan Ming's expression became ferocious. Capture all the members of the barbarian spirit race and bring them here. The experts of the illusion race vanished on the spot when they heard Huan Ming. On the other hand, Man Qing's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, Patriarch Huan Ming, please give Man Lin face and let me. Huan Ming suddenly roared furiously, Shut up. My illusion race isn't related to your barbarian spirit race at all. Man Qing was speechless. Huan Ming turned around to gaze at Yi Xian, who was on the verge of death, and then he hurriedly withdrew a thumb-sized medicinal pill and spoke in a trembling voice, Young Master Yi, your injuries aren't very severe. You won't die. Come, quickly take this medicine. Yi Xian glanced at Man Qing, and then he spoke in a timid voice, I'm afraid. Man Qing was speechless. Huan Ming glanced coldly at Man Qing, and the latter hurriedly said, Patriarch Huan Ming, Huan Ming suddenly clenched his fist. Man Qing's soul felt like an invisible hand had clamped down on his throat, and he couldn't speak any longer. Huan Ming gazed coldly at Man Qing. I'll repeat myself once more. My illusion race isn't related to your barbarian spirit race at all. Man Qing was speechless. Meanwhile, the experts of the illusion race had arrived here, and all the members of the beast spirit race had been captured here. There were tens of thousands of them. They weren't able to resist at all. Man Tian spoke in a trembling voice when he witnessed this scene, Patriarch Huan Ming, we shouldn't harm our clansmen. I wonder if, when he spoke up to this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and he immediately looked at Yi Xian and bowed deeply. Young Master Yi, this is the fault of my barbarian spirit race. Please show mercy, Yi Xian suddenly said, I'm feeling dizzy. I'm going to rest for a while. As he spoke, he slowly closed his eyes. Man Tian's face instantly turned pale. Meanwhile, Huan Ming suddenly said, behead them all. As soon as he finished speaking, the heads of the tens of thousands of experts of the barbarian spirit race fell to the ground before Man Tian could even react, and blood instantly dyed the ground red. Man Tian slumped to the ground when he witnessed this scene. The beast spirit race was gone. It was gone just like that. Man Qing, who hadn't died completely, was ashen, and his entire soul was trembling. The once glorious barbarian spirit race was gone just like that. Even though their heads had been chopped off, their souls were still there. Right when the experts of the illusion race were about to destroy the souls of the barbarian spirit race's experts, the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hands suddenly flew out, and then it started to madly absorb the souls of the barbarian spirit race's experts. The experts of the illusion race gazed at Huan Ming when they witnessed this scene. Huan Ming glanced at the green profound sword, and then he waved his hand. All the experts of the illusion race immediately moved aside. At this moment, Shou Yan suddenly ran in front of Yi Xian. He knelt down and said in a trembling voice, Young Master Yi, my spirit beast race has eyes but failed to see. Please be magnanimous and let my spirit beast race off. Yi Xian smiled and said, You're begging the wrong person. You should be begging the patriarch of the illusion race. Shou Yan hurriedly shook his head. Young Master Yi, my beast spirit race is willing to submit to you. So long as you're willing to show mercy, my beast spirit race is willing to do anything. Yi Xian remained silent. Shou Yan was delighted when he saw Yi Xian remain silent, and he hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, from this moment onward, my beast spirit race is willing to follow you. Yi Xian suddenly shook his head. I'm feeling a little dizzy. I need to rest. Shou Yan's face instantly turned ghastly pale. Meanwhile, Huan Ming suddenly said, Slash. As soon as he finished speaking, countless experts of the illusion race charged into the beast spirit world below. In the next moment, numerous bloody heads shot into the sky. They weren't able to resist at all. Meanwhile, Shou Yan suddenly roared furiously, Ancestor summon. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of white light suddenly shot into the sky from within the beast spirit world. Meanwhile, Huan Ming suddenly pressed his right hand down. Bang! The ray of white light exploded into pieces, and the souls of the beast spirit race's ancestors within it were instantly crushed. Yi Xian's expression instantly became solemn when he witnessed this scene. The strength of the illusion race's patriarch wasn't just ordinary. Meanwhile, the green profound sword suddenly flew into the beast spirit world, and then it madly absorbed the souls of the beast spirit race's experts. Right at this moment, Shou Qing suddenly gazed at Yi Xian. Who exactly are you? Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword directly entered the space between Shou Qing's brows and absorbed his soul. After that, the green profound sword entered the space between Man Tian's brows. Bang! Man Tian was instantly absorbed. Huan Ming glanced at the green profound sword, and then he said, "Young Master Yi, was this sword forged by that senior?" Yi Xian nodded. Huan Ming's expression became solemn when he saw this. No wonder. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Senior, I need to recuperate." As he spoke, he entered the Shao Ta. Recuperate. His body had almost been shattered by the group attack just now, and he was in an extraordinarily miserable state. After Yi Xian entered the Shao Ta, Huan Ming glanced coldly at the surroundings and said, "Investigate and see if young Master Yi has any other enemies." Yes. Some of the experts of the illusion race bowed slightly and left. Huan Ming closed his eyes slowly. At this moment, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately, young Master Yi is fine. Otherwise, he really didn't dare to imagine the consequences. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared here. At this moment, Yi Xian's injuries had completely healed. A wisp of surprise flashed through Huan Ming's eyes when he saw that Yi Xian's injuries had completely healed. That was too swift. Yi Xian cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, senior." Huan Ming hurriedly shook his head, "It's nothing." If it wasn't for Senior Su Kun, then the old man would have probably been unable to take another step forward in his cultivation. Qing, Yi Xian spoke solemnly, "Where's Qing now?" Huan Ming shook his head and laughed bitterly, "I don't know. That day, she only passed by the illusory Nether tribe and then left. As for where she went, I don't dare to ask." Yi Xian was speechless. Huan Ming continued, "Young Master Yi, the matter here has come to an end. Why don't you come with me to the illusion race?" Yi Xian was about to speak when the space in the distance suddenly trembled. Huan Ming frowned slightly, and then he turned around. A man had suddenly walked out from that expanse of space. The man had a triangular head and a strange blood-red talisman mark on the center of his forehead. It wasn't his main body, it was just a shadow. It was the ancestor of the spirit beast race, Biyao. He was the one who'd led the spirit beast race into a grade 5 civilization. Biyao gazed at Huan Ming, and then his gaze descended onto Yi Xian. "My spirit beast race was annihilated because of you." Yi Xian was about to speak when Huan Ming suddenly said, "My illusion race was annihilated." Biyao gazed at Huan Ming, a rank 17 expert. Huan Ming smiled, "You were able to notice that I'm at the rank 17. Looks like you're not simple." Biyao suddenly smiled, "Is rank 17 very strong?" Huan Ming smiled slightly. "To some people, it's not strong, but to you, forgive me for being blunt, but do you dare to show your true body?" Biyao stared at Yi Xian. "The hatred of the extermination of my clan is absolutely irreconcilable." As he spoke, his body gradually became illusory. "P.S. Today, I'm going to kill a pig and eat pig rice. Haha. Chapter 1887. Once Yao vanished, Huan Ming suddenly said, "Send my order to search for him throughout the universe." An old man behind Huan Ming bowed slightly, understood. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Huan Ming turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, this place is probably no longer safe. Come with me to the illusion race." Yi Xian fell silent for a short while before he said, "Can you give me 3 days of time?" Huan Ming nodded, "Of course." Yi Xian turned around and left. He had to give them some instructions. Once Yi Xian left, Huan Ming suddenly turned around. "Who is it?" Space trembled slightly in the distance, and then a woman appeared before the experts of the illusion race. If Yi Xian was here, he would definitely be pleasantly surprised. Because it was none other than Mu Niannian. Huan Ming gazed at Mu Niannian with a trace of vigilance in his eyes. He couldn't see through this woman. Huan Ming spoke solemnly, "Who are you?" Mu Niannian smiled, "I'm his older sister." Huan Ming was slightly stunned. "Older sister?" The corners of Mu Nianyan's mouth curled up slightly. Yes. Huan Ming hurriedly cupped his fists. May I know what orders you have for me? Mu Nianyan asked. Does your illusion race have any opponents? Huan Ming spoke solemnly. We do. Mu Nianyan said. Go on. Huan Ming glanced at Mu Nianyan. Even though he didn't know what she meant, he still hurriedly said, my illusion race is located in the ancient exalted world, and there are 3 extraordinary powers there. One of them is my illusion race, the other is the ancient exalted clan and the ancient desolate race. My illusion race and the ancient desolate race are mortal enemies. Mu Nianyan nodded slightly. Then the ancestor of the spirit beast race, Biyao, should be with the ancient desolate race. Huan Ming frowned slightly. Why? Mu Nianyan smiled. He knows that you've reached the 17th rank, and he dares to say that the enmity between us is irreconcilable. That's because he has the confidence to resist your illusion race. Ming Huan said solemnly, it's impossible for someone from the lower realms to reach the great heaven ancient world. Mu Nianyan smiled and said, that woman in the plain dress is also from the lower realm. Huan Ming's pupils constricted abruptly when he heard this. After a short moment, he bowed slightly. I understand. Mu Nianyan continued, moreover, since he dared to speak so harshly in front of you, it means that the ancient desolate tribe might take action. Huan Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. He was just about to speak when the space before him suddenly became illusory. In the next moment, a figure appeared in front of him. The illusion clan. The illusory race member's face was pale and his eyes were filled with fear. Clan leader, the ancient desolate race ambushed our illusory race. Our illusory race is gone. Huan Ming's expression instantly became ferocious when he heard this. The primordial clan. With that, he turned. All clansmen, heed my command. Return to Grand Luo immediately, Mu Nianyan suddenly said. Wait. Huan Ming looked at Mu Nianyan. Mu Nianyan said, if you return now, your entire army will be wiped out. Huan Ming said solemnly, Miss, what do you mean? Mu Nianyan looked at Huan Ming. The ancient desolate race and your illusory race should be on par in strength, so why did they dare to attack? You should know that if they fought you to the death, who would benefit from it? The ancient exalted clan, of course. There's no way they wouldn't understand this. But they still attacked us. Huan Ming's expression was a little unsightly. The ancient exalted clan joined forces with them. Mu Nianyan nodded. That's right. Huan Ming clenched his fists. Why would they join forces? Mu Nianyan said, there are only 2 reasons. The first is the benefits. Joining forces to destroy your illusory race will bring you benefits. Please continue to the next page. The second is the threat. Even your illusory race poses a threat to them. Huan Ming's expression was dark. It looks like they've already found out about my breakthrough. Mu Nianyan nodded. You can't bring your clansmen back to the ancient exalted world right now, because they've definitely made thorough preparations. If you return now, you'll be walking right into their trap. Huan Ming fell silent for a moment, then turned to Mu Nianyan and bowed slightly. Please advise me, miss. Mu Nianyan smiled. I have a very good idea. Huan Ming bowed again. Please speak, miss. Mu Nianyan gently combed her disheveled hair behind her ear. Let me analyze it for you. You brought most of the experts of your race to receive that little fellow, so they must be extremely curious. If I'm not wrong, they must be doing everything in their power to investigate this little fellow's origins. But they won't be able to find anything. They'll definitely guess that if a human could make your illusory race send their entire race to receive him, how could he be an ordinary person? Coupled with the fact that you've just broken through, I would definitely guess that this human might be from a level 7 civilization if I were them. As she spoke, she gazed at Huan Ming. Their target seems to be you, but it's actually that little fellow. Huan Ming laughed bitterly when he heard this. Mu Nianyan said, find a way to spread the news that he's from a level 7 civilization. However, he was taken away by someone, and he even brought many divine objects with him. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and 3 portraits appeared in front of Huan Ming. They were the portraits of the woman in a plain dress, the man in green, and the swordsman. Mu Nianyan smiled. The 3 of them and Yi Xian escaped from a level 7 civilization, and they even brought some divine objects with them. Huan Ming was stunned, and then he said, "You're asking them to look for them?" Mu Nianyan nodded. "They will." Huan Ming hesitated for a moment before he said, "Is that all right?" Mu Nianyan smiled, "It's fine. Don't worry and do it. Leave everything to that little fellow." Huan Ming was speechless. Mu Nianyan added, "Also, you have to let them know that the 3 of them were heavily injured when they escaped from a level 7 civilization, and they've gone into hiding now." Huan Ming glanced at Mu Nianyan. "Miss, this, actually," he wanted to ask if this was too sinister. He didn't know how strong the man in green and the swordsman were, but he knew how strong the woman in a plain dress was. If the ancient Daluo clan and the ancient Desolate clan found her, wouldn't that be like entering the toilet with a lantern? It was too sinister. Of course, he didn't dislike it at all. Mu Nianyan smiled. "There's one more thing that you absolutely must remember. You have to let them understand that you're not looking for that little fellow to protect him, but to find those 3 people through him and obtain the divine objects from a level 7 civilization. Only then will your illusory race be able to escape from this vortex." Huan Ming bowed respectfully. "Understood." Mu Nianyan nodded, turned around, and left. Huan Ming suddenly asked, "Miss, are they really from a level 7 civilization?" Mu Nianyan stopped in her tracks and smiled. "What do you think?" Huan Ming said solemnly, "Did I underestimate them a little?" Mu Nianyan nodded. "Yes, you did." With that, she turned around and disappeared into the starry sky. Huan Ming frowned slightly. "I underestimated them a little. Could they be from a level 8 civilization?" After a while, he turned around and left. The entrance to the ancient Daluo clan was currently at the entrance. This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. Countless experts had already gathered here. Among them, there were 2 17th stage experts, 23 16th stage experts, and several hundred 15th stage experts. These experts were from the ancient Daluo clan and the desolate ancient sect. Leading them was the patriarch of the ancient Daluo clan, Daluo Tian, and Desolate Xing. Daluo Tian looked into the distance and smiled. "Brother Xing, do you think this Huan Ming would suddenly bring his entire clan to find a human? This is very strange." Desolate Xing smiled. "That human is not simple." Daluo Tendo said, "I've already sent someone to investigate." Desolate Xing was about to speak when an expert of the ancient Daluo clan appeared before Daluo Tian, and he said solemnly, "Patriarch, according to the latest news, that human is from a level 7 civilization." A level 7 civilization. The expressions of all the experts changed when they heard this. Daluo Tian narrowed his eyes. A level 7 civilization? The exalted elder nodded. According to our men's reports, that human and 3 others escaped from a level 7 civilization, and the other 3 are heavily injured. The reason why Huan Ming brought so many of his clansmen to find that human, Yi Xian, was mainly because he wanted to find those 3 injured humans through Yi Xian because those 3 humans brought back many divine artifacts from a level 7 civilization. Divine artifacts. Daluo Tian sneered. No wonder Huan Ming didn't just break through, he even brought all the experts of his clan to find that human. So it was for the divine artifacts from a level 7 civilization. Desolate Xing suddenly asked, "Those 3 humans are heavily injured?" The expert of the ancient Daluo clan nodded. "Yes." Desolate Xing and Daluo Tian exchanged glances, and then Desolate Xing said solemnly, "They escaped from a level 7 civilization." In other words, they definitely know about level 7 civilizations, and they have divine artifacts. At this moment, one of the experts suddenly said, "According to my clansmen, that human, Yi Xian, has a divine sword." The one who spoke was the ancestor of the Spirit Beast clan, Biyao. Desolate Xing turned to look at Biyao. Tell me about that sword. Biyao said solemnly, that human, Yi Xian, is only a level 10 expert, but he can use that sword to kill a level 15 expert. Moreover, he can use that sword to ignore the pressure of spacetime and the spacetime abyss. He can even use that sword to enter the 7th layer of spacetime and ignore the spacetime black hole there. Daluo Tian frowned slightly. He can use that sword to kill a level 15 expert. Biyao nodded. Yes. Daluo Tian said solemnly, it seems like he really is from a level 7 civilization. Meanwhile, Desolate Xing spoke abruptly, those 3 humans. When he spoke up to this point, he exchanged glances with Daluo Tian, and then he said solemnly, we can't allow them to fall into the hands of the illusion race. As he spoke, he turned to look at the expert from the Exalted Clan. Do you have portraits of them? The expert from the Exalted Clan nodded, yes. Because the illusion race has sent people to search for them. As he spoke, he waved his right hand lightly, and then 3 portraits appeared before them. Daluo Tian immediately said, send my order. Gather the strength of the entire clan to search for them. Desolate Xing hurriedly said as well, send my order. Everyone from the ancient Daluo clan is to stop what they're doing and search for them with all our strength. The experts from both clans retreated. On the other hand, Desolate Xing and Daluo Tian became excited. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They had escaped from a level 7 civilization. It was time to change their destiny. End of this chapter. Chapter 1888. In the Xiao Ta, Yi Xian stood silently as the spacetime overlapped in front of him. Spacetime overlapped. Soon, he overlapped the 1st to the 4th spacetime. However, he didn't stop there. He continued to overlap. And the 6th spacetime. It was very difficult. Because the 6th spacetime was as dense as the previous few spacetimes combined. Now, he wanted to overlap the 6th spacetime with the previous spacetimes. The difficulty was obvious. Most importantly, he didn't use the green profound sword this time. Because the green profound sword was breaking through, he was relying on his own strength. Time passed bit by bit. In front of Yi Xian, the 6th layer of spacetime began to overlap with the spacetime in front of him. Yi Xian's face gradually turned pale because the spacetime in front of him began to become unstable. Gradually, cold sweat appeared on Yi Xian's forehead. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian suddenly pressed his right hand down. Bang! The spacetime overlapped in front of him. In an instant, an invisible spacetime pressure swept out from the spacetime in front of him, and the Xiao Ta trembled violently. At this moment, the Xiao Ta hurriedly said, young master, don't do anything rash. Yi Xian waved his right hand lightly, and the spacetime in front of him returned to normal. Yi Xian took a deep breath. Although he was only at the 10th stage, with this move, he wouldn't feel any pressure even if he fought a 15th stage powerhouse, even without the green profound sword. He didn't completely rely on the green profound sword. The green profound sword was equivalent to a medium for him to communicate with the spacetime. Without the green profound sword, he wouldn't be able to escape into the spacetime. Now, he could enter the 6th spacetime even without the green profound sword. Of course, without the green profound sword, he wouldn't be able to ignore the spacetime pressure and the spacetime abyss. At this moment, he actually understood why Qing forged the green profound sword for him. To increase his combat strength? That was definitely one of the reasons. Qing Er's real purpose was to let him learn from the green profound sword. The green profound sword was his best teacher. A smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth when he thought of this, and his heart felt warm. The younger sister was definitely the biological younger sister, but the father might not necessarily be the biological father. After a while, Yi Xian left Xiao Ta. He did not attempt to fold and fuse the 7th spacetime because the 7th spacetime was too terrifying. It wasn't something he could control right now. As soon as he left Xiao Ta, Huan Ming appeared in front of him. Glancing at Yi Xian, Huan Ming said with a smile, "Young Master Yi has become stronger." Yi Xian smiled. "Senior Phantom, let's go to the illusory tribe." Huan Ming hesitated for a moment, then told him about the exalted celestial world. After listening to Huan Ming, Yi Xian fell silent. After a while, he looked at Huan Ming and said, "I'm sorry." Huan Ming shook his head. "Young Master Yi, please don't say that. If it wasn't for Senior Suqiong, I'm afraid it would have been difficult for me to break through in this lifetime. To me, I owe her a new lease on life." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "What do you plan to do now, Senior?" Huan Ming hesitated for a moment and said, "Young Master Yi, your older sister gave me some advice." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "My older sister?" Huan Ming nodded. "Your older sister." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Senior, please describe her appearance." Huan Ming opened his palm, and the space above his palm suddenly warped. It didn't take long for the image of a woman to appear above his palm. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw the woman. "Sister Nian. Sister Nian is actually here." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "Senior, where is she now? Please continue to the next page." Huan Ming smiled bitterly. "I don't know." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Sister Nian is really something. Since she's here, why didn't she see me?" And two. He naturally hadn't forgotten this younger sister of his. However, he hadn't heard any news about them in a very, very long time. However, he believed that the two of them definitely wouldn't be doing too badly. What a joke. One of them was Sister Nian, who even Qing had taken a liking to, and the other was the clone of the first Qing. How could they possibly be doing badly? Huan Ming told Yi Xian about Nian Nian's plan. Yi Xian was speechless when he heard that. Why is Sister Nian still so devious? She's asking the ancient exalted clan and the desolate antiquity sect to search for Qing, Dad, and Big Brother? That's too devious. Huan Ming suddenly asked, "Young Master Yi, will Senior Su Qiong and the others get angry if I do that?" Yi Xian smiled. "They won't." Huan Ming instantly heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Xian gazed at Huan Ming. "Senior, have they really gone to search for them?" Huan Ming nodded. "According to my people, they've started searching with all their might for Senior Su Qiong and the others. I just don't know if they've found them yet." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression suddenly changed. "This isn't good. If they can't find them, then they'll definitely come looking for me." Huan Ming's expression changed slightly as well. "That seems to be the case." Yi Xian was about to speak when an expert from the illusion race suddenly appeared in front of him. The expert bowed slightly and said, "Patriarch, young Master Yi, the patriarch of the ancient exalted clan and the master of the desolate antiquity sect are rushing over here." Yi Xian's face fell when he had heard that. Huan Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. "They're rushing over here?" The expert nodded. "Yes." Huan Ming turned to look at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, you're probably their target. We'll escort you away, you." Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "Where to?" Huan Ming fell silent. Where to? There was nowhere else to go. Huan Ming spoke solemnly. "Young Master Yi, you leave first. We'll stop them." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Can your illusion race fight too on their own?" Huan Ming was about to speak when Yi Xian smiled. "I'm their target. They'll definitely not let you go if I leave." He looked up into the sky as he spoke. "I'll wait for them." Huan Ming frowned slightly. "Wait for them?" Yi Xian smiled. "I'll wait for them." Huan Ming was slightly puzzled. "Young Master Yi, you..." Suddenly, the starry sky in the distance warped, and then a terrifying aura swept over. "They're here." A cold light flashed through Huan Ming's eyes. "Men." Countless experts of the illusion race appeared behind him as soon as he spoke. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "Senior Huan Ming, tell your clansmen not to attack." Huan Ming glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. If a fight really broke out, he definitely wouldn't sit back and watch. In any case, he was determined to cling to Yi Xian. No one could stop him. At this moment, the space above their heads suddenly split open, and then two people walked out. It was the sect master of the ancient Desolation sect, Huanggu Xing, and the patriarch of the ancient exalted clan, Daluo Tian. Daluo Tian's gaze immediately fell on Yi Xian. You must be young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled, yes. Daluo Tian stared at Yi Xian. You're waiting for us? This chapter is not over. Please continue. Yi Xian nodded. Daluo Tian looked at Yi Xian, a trace of wariness rising in his heart. This human might be from a level 7 civilization. He had never seen a level 7 civilization, but he knew that someone from such a civilization was definitely not simple. At this moment, Huanggu Xing suddenly smiled. Young Master Yi, you know the purpose of our trip, right? Yi Xian nodded. I know. You want to find those 3 people through me, right? Huanggu Xing looked at Yi Xian. Will young Master Yi help us? Yi Xian looked at Huanggu Xing and smiled. If I don't help, what will you do? Huanggu Xing smiled. What do you think we will do, young Master Yi? Yi Xian fell silent. Daluo Tian suddenly said, Young Master Yi, we don't want to use force, but we hope that young Master Yi will cooperate with us. As long as young Master Yi is willing to cooperate, we won't hurt young Master Yi. Yi Xian said solemnly, Forgive me for being blunt, but you might not be a match for those 3. He paused for a moment before he continued, Even though they're heavily injured and their strength has been suppressed, they're still not people that ordinary people can deal with. Heavily injured. Their strength has been suppressed. Daluo Tian and Huanggu Xing exchanged glances, and a wisp of excitement flashed through their eyes. Meanwhile, Daluo Tian said, Young Master Yi, you said they're heavily injured. Can you tell me in detail? Yi Xian said solemnly, They're like me. They escaped, and they were heavily injured by an extraordinary force from above because they stole some divine artifacts from that extraordinary force. Huanggu Xing suddenly asked. What divine artifacts? Yi Xian glanced at Huanggu Xing, and then he said, I don't know anything else, but I do know that the man in the green robe has a super divine item in his possession. That divine item can directly wipe out the 8th layer of spacetime. Not only that, it can also change the nature of life. Daluo Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. The essence of life? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Life is above spacetime. As he spoke, he glanced at Daluo Tian and said, I presume that you've come into contact with the life Tao as well. However, you probably don't know much about it. Daluo Tian nodded. I really don't. Yi Xian said, That man has some extraordinary divine artifacts in his possession. For example, he has a saint door. If one enters it, then one can reconstruct one's saint physique. Once one attains the saint physique, then one can surpass the spacetime Tao and disregard all spatial pressure, abysses, and black holes. The expressions of the experts from Daluo Tian became solemn when they heard this. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian said again, That azure-robed man is badly injured. Daluo Tian gazed at Yi Xian. How severe are his injuries? Yi Xian fell silent for a short moment before he said, His current strength isn't even 30% of his peak strength. Those divine artifacts in his possession can't be utilized at all. Huanggu Xing said abruptly, How can we believe you? Yi Xian glanced at Huanggu Xing, and then he opened his palm. The green profound sword flew over to Daluo Tian and said, Take a look at this sword. Daluo Tian glanced at the sword, and then his expression instantly became solemn. This. Yi Xian gazed at Daluo Tian and said, That green-clothed man was struck down when he fled, and then I took advantage of him. The divine artifacts in his possession are only of the lowest quality. He has at least 100 extraordinary divine artifacts in his possession. Any one of them can completely change one's fate. He's extremely weak right now, so it's the best time to kill him. Once he recovers. All of you understand. He didn't continue speaking at this point. End of this chapter. Chapter 1889. Heavily injured. Daluo and Huanggu Xing glanced at each other when they heard Yi Xian, and then they didn't hesitate to make their decision. It was an extremely rare opportunity. It was worth it. Right at this moment, the ancestor of the spirit beasts, Biyao, suddenly said, "I think there's something fishy about this." Daluo and Huanggu Xing looked at Biyao, and the latter looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, why do I feel like you're setting a trap for us? You're asking us to look for that man in green clothes on purpose?" Daluo and Huanggu Xing looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian smiled. "To tell you the truth, I want to work together with all of you because I want to obtain the divine treasures in that man's possession. However, I'm very clearly aware that my strength alone isn't enough, so I'm willing to work together with all of you." Ye Yao stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "There are 3 suspicious points. Firstly, according to my knowledge, the human race was created by the God Clan, and the God Clan is only a level 3 civilization. However, you said that those 3 people are from a level 7 civilization. This doesn't make sense. Secondly, you said that the strength of those 3 people was suppressed when they came to this universe. I'd like to ask how they were suppressed. How were they suppressed? Thirdly, young Master Yi from a level 7 civilization, why are you so weak? You're only at level 10. Is that reasonable?" The All-Heaven Domain and Primordial Xing frowned when they heard Ye Yao. At this moment, their minds were much clearer. All the experts here looked at Yi Xian and waited for Yi Xian's explanation. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "How laughable. How truly laughable. An ant actually used your knowledge to judge a level 7 civilization. Don't you think it's laughable?" As he spoke, he issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword in Daluo's hand flew over to Ye Yao. "Come, take a look at this sword, and then please explain the spacetime Tao contained within it." Ye Yao glanced at the green profound sword in front of him, and his expression gradually became heavy without him realizing it. With another thought, Yi Xian sent the green profound sword directly into the 7th layer of spacetime. Not only that, but he himself also followed the green profound sword into the 7th layer of spacetime. All the experts in the surroundings revealed solemn expressions when they witnessed this scene. A 10th phase expert entering the 7th layer of spacetime? What kind of joke was this? At this time, Yi Xian suddenly took the initiative to enter the spacetime abyss of the 7th spacetime. After entering the spacetime abyss, nothing happened to Yi Xian. The expressions of the members of the ancient Desolate Clan and ancient Exalted Clan became slightly unsightly when they saw this. This fellow could ignore the abyss of space and time. Ye Yao's expression turned extremely solemn. Because the current him couldn't even enter the 7th layer of spacetime, let alone the spacetime abyss within it. At this moment, Yi Xian returned. He looked at Ye Yao and smiled. "Sir, can you explain why I'm immune to the spacetime abyss?" Ye Yao's expression was slightly ugly. Meanwhile, the All-Heaven expert said abruptly, "Young Master Yi is willing to work together with us?" Yi Xian gazed at the All-Heaven expert. "I have a condition." The All-Heaven expert gazed at Yi Xian. "What is it?" Yi Xian smiled. "That green-clothed man has a white little fellow with him. I want that little fellow." Xiao Ta was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, the Desolate Clan Xing suddenly asked, "What's that? A spirit pet?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Sort of." The Desolate Clan Xing gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Meanwhile, the All-Heaven expert spoke abruptly, "I agree." Yi Xian gazed at the All-Heaven expert. "You have to swear." Not only did the All-Heaven expert not get angry, he smiled instead. Because the more Yi Xian acted like this, the more it proved that he wanted to help them find the green-clothed man. The All-Heaven Tendo said, "I swear that if I kill that green-clothed man, then the spirit pet in his possession will belong to you." Yi Xian nodded. "It's a pleasure working with you." The All-Heaven expert gazed at Yi Xian. "It's a pleasure working with you." Meanwhile, the desolate clan Xing said, "Take us to him." Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. "Xiao Ta, it's time for you to show off." Xiao Ta spoke in a low voice, "Young master, are you really going to lead them to kill master? You have to think it through. It's probably quite difficult for us to kill master with our current strength. Unless we call him Big Sister Tianming." Yi Xian's face darkened. "Xiao Ta, who exactly gave you the courage to act so arrogantly?" Xiao Ta grunted coldly, "Young master, don't look down on me. I was modified by Big Sister Tianming." Yi Xian was speechless. "Damn it. So it was Qing who gave you the courage?" Yi Xian shook his head. "Xiao Ta, can you sense where I am?" After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta said, "I can't contact master." Yi Xian frowned. At this time, Xiao Ta said, "But I have a way to find master." Yi Xian quickly asked, "What way?" Xiao Ta said, "Shaoling, She can contact Little White." Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. "I'm so stupid, I actually forgot about Shaoling, Shaoling, was in Xiao Ta." Yi Xian quickly contacted Shaoling, At this time, Shaoling was planting spiritual fruits in Xiao Ta. She loved to do this every day. Yi Xian looked at the all-heaven expert. "Wait a moment." With that, he entered Xiao Ta. Meanwhile, the all-heaven expert frowned when he saw Yi Xian vanish on the spot. Meanwhile, Huanggu Xing spoke via voice transmission. "You can't trust everything he says." The all-heaven expert nodded, "Of course. So long as he helps us find that green-clothed man, then." When he spoke up to hear, a cold glow flashed through his eyes. Huanggu Xing understood and nodded right away. Once they found that green-clothed man and the others, then Yi Xian would naturally lose his value. Right at this moment, Yi Xian appeared here, and he gazed at Huanggu Xing and the all-heaven expert. "Come with me." He paused for a moment and continued, "Just in case, please bring all the experts of your clans with you." The all-heaven expert nodded, "Of course." Yi Xian nodded, and then he turned around to look at Huan Ming and smiled. "Patriarch Huan Ming, we can't continue working together." Huan Ming feigned an unsightly expression. Yi Xian gazed at the all-heaven expert and Huanggu Xing. "Come with me." As soon as he finished speaking, he flew up on his sword and vanished into the starry sky in the blink of an eye. The all-heaven expert fell silent for a moment before he said, "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, he led the experts of the ancient exalted clan into the starry sky, and Huanggu Xing hurriedly led the experts of the ancient exalted clan into the starry sky as well. On the other hand, Ye Yao's brows were knit together tightly. He was comparatively calm, and his intuition told him that there was something fishy about this. However, he had no way to stop Exalted Heaven and Huanggu Xing because he knew that they wouldn't give up on this opportunity. After all, it was a level 7 civilization. Up until now, they still hadn't laid eyes on a level 7 civilization, and becoming a level 7 civilization was their lifelong goal. Now that they had such an opportunity, they naturally had to seize it. Suddenly, Huan Ming said, "Why aren't you going with them and are pondering here instead?" Ye Yao's expression instantly changed drastically, and he gazed at Huan Ming. He was just about to speak when a wisp of a ferocious smile arose on the corners of Huan Ming's mouth. "The enmity of annihilation is absolutely irreconcilable? Who do you think you are?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly slapped his palm down. Bang! Ye Yao didn't even have the chance to react before he was blasted into the spatial abyss. Ye Yao descended madly from within the spatial abyss, and his eyes were filled with terror. He wasn't like Yi Xian, so he couldn't disregard the spatial abyss. But now, the experts of the ancient exalted sect had left, so no one paid any attention to him. Despair. Ye Yao fell into despair within the spatial abyss. Huan Ming glanced coldly at Ye Yao. "Who the hell do you think you are? You can't even compare to half of young Master Ye's intelligence, yet you dare to speak about taking revenge." As soon as he finished speaking, he led his clansmen away. It didn't take long for Ye Yao to be completely annihilated. Yi Xian was flying through the boundless starry sky while Huang Guxing and Huang Guxing weren't too far away from him. Meanwhile, Huang Guxing suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, can you tell us about that green-clothed man and those two others? We want to get to know them." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "That green-clothed man's skin is extremely thick, shameless, and wretched. You must be careful if you encounter him because he's truly shameless." Xiao Ta was at a loss for words. Huang Guxing gazed at Yi Xian. "What we want to know is his strength." Yi Xian said, "Actually, his strength isn't particularly terrifying. The most terrifying thing about him is his shamelessness. He acts extremely shamelessly, so you must be careful if you encounter him." Huang Guxing glanced at Yi Xian. "Is he very shameless?" Yi Xian spoke seriously, "Extremely." Huang Guxing laughed. "Now I'm quite curious." Yi Xian was about to speak when Huang Guxing suddenly asked, "Where's that green-clothed man now?" Yi Xian gazed towards the end of the starry sky and spoke softly, "I don't know the specifics, but I can find him." Huang Guxing glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything else. Yi Xian suddenly sped up. About a day later, Yi Xian and the others arrived at an unknown starfield, a starfield very far from the exalted ancient world. Huang Guxing's eyes flashed with wariness. "Young Master Yi, where are we?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." Huang Guxing looked at Yi Xian. "You don't know?" Yi Xian gazed into the distance, whispering, "We're almost there." Almost there. All Heaven Celestial was just about to speak when Desolate Xing's voice suddenly resounded within his mind, "Be careful." Huang Guxing nodded. At this time, Yi Xian disappeared into the distance on his sword. Huang Guxing glanced at Yi Xian in the distance. "Let's go." About 2 hours later, Yi Xian suddenly said excitedly, "Everyone, I can already sense his aura." Saying so, his speed suddenly exploded. Behind him, Huang Guxing narrowed his eyes. "Everyone, get ready." With that, he led the exalted ancient clan in pursuit. Huang Guxing also hurriedly led the experts of his sect and followed closely behind. 4 hours later, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. He looked into the distance and said excitedly, "Found it." At the edge of the starry sky, there were 2 swordsmen. One of them was a swordsman dressed in a green robe while the other was dressed in a white robe. At this moment, the corners of grand overarching heaven's mouth curled into a smile, and he waved his hand. "Stop those 2 swordsmen." With that, the exalted clan experts behind him charged forward, quickly surrounding the 2 swordsmen. Chapter 1890. They were stunned. Regardless of whether it was the swordsman or the green-clothed man, both of them were slightly stunned. "How did we get surrounded?" Meanwhile, the green-clothed man turned around to gaze at Yi Xian, and his face instantly fell when he saw Yi Xian, that unfilial son. Yi Xian was speechless. The swordsman glanced at Yi Xian and grinned. He had a good impression of Yi Xian, and the little fellow was to his liking. Meanwhile, Huang Gu and Xing from exalted heaven appeared in front of the green-clothed man, and they stared fixedly at the green-clothed man. "Show yourself." As soon as the voice resounded, 2 old men appeared behind the green-clothed man and swordsman. Both of them were actually at the 17th rank, and their gazes had descended onto the green-clothed man. Their divine sense had locked onto the green-clothed man, and they would attack immediately if the green-clothed man moved in the slightest. Huang Gu's eyes were filled with surprise when he witnessed this scene. Both of them were supreme elders of the ancient exalted clan, and they'd been in closed-door cultivation for a few hundreds of thousands of years. He hadn't expected that exalted heaven would actually summon them. They're really going all out. Meanwhile, exalted heaven suddenly said, "Attack. Attack right away. The first to strike gains the upper hand." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly clenched his right fist and smashed it forward. This fist shot straight towards the green-clothed man's head. The formidable force contained within his fist caused the starry sky and the surroundings to seethe. The green-clothed man frowned slightly. "What's wrong with you?" As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his thumb lightly. Hiss! A ray of light flashed, and then the others didn't even have the chance to react before it stabbed into the center of the exalted heaven's forehead. In an instant, the surroundings fell silent. An instant kill? The exalted heaven is a 17th rank expert. He was instantly killed just like that? All the experts here were flabbergasted. On the other hand, exalted heaven's eyes were opened wide, and they were filled with disbelief. Who am I? What's wrong with me? At this moment, the minds of the exalted heaven had gone blank. On the other side, Huang Gu recovered from his shock, and then he gazed at Yi Xian and shouted furiously, "Human! How dare you deceive us? He's not seriously injured at all." Yi Xian blinked. "I apologize to you. Sorry, I lied." Huang Guxing's lungs almost exploded with rage when he heard this. He glared fixedly at Yi Xian, and then he looked at the green-clothed man and bowed slightly. "Sir, this is a misunderstanding. This is a huge misunderstanding." As he spoke, he pointed angrily at Yi Xian. "It's all because of this person. This person said that you were heavily injured, so he asked us to join forces to kill you." "You," the azure-clothed man suddenly said, "he's my son." Huang Guang's expression froze. Yi Xian looked at Huang Guxing. "Are you trying to sow discord between us?" Huang Guxing turned around and ran. Father and son? He knew that they had been tricked. At this moment, a sword suddenly pierced through his forehead. Chi! Huang Guxing's body froze, and then his body and soul disappeared bit by bit. At this time, the surrounding experts also came to their senses and fled. The green-robed man suddenly drew his sword and swept. Hiss! 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 In an instant, tens of thousands of heads flew into the air while blood sprayed through the starry sky like fountains. It was an extremely bloody scene. Amongst them included the two 17th phase super experts. A single strike. The ancient exalted clan had been annihilated. The ancient desolate sect had been annihilated. Exalted celestial and desolate Xing, who were still alive, were completely dumbfounded by the scene before them. We'd come all the way here to give our lives away? As if he'd thought of something, exalted heaven suddenly gazed at Yi Xian and spoke resentfully, "Human. I curse you. I curse you to die a horrible death." Meanwhile, the green-clothed man spoke abruptly, "Are you treating me like I don't exist?" Exalted heaven gazed at the green-clothed man and was about to speak when the green-clothed man casually swung his sword. Hiss! Exalted heaven was instantly annihilated. The green-clothed man remained expressionless. "You're cursing my son? What nonsense." As he spoke, he swung his sword once more. Hiss! Huang Guang was instantly annihilated. Yi Xian chuckled and hurriedly tried to flatter the green-clothed man. "Father is invincible." The green-clothed man turned to gaze at Yi Xian, and he fell silent for a moment before he said, "For the first time, I feel that you're truly formidable. You actually brought your enemies here. Of course, I admire your enemies even more. They actually followed you to find me. Why are your enemies so stupid? Can you explain it to me?" Yi Xian was at a loss for words. The green-clothed man sighed softly. "If you continue playing like this, then when will you be able to surpass the three of us? Tell me, do you have a chance to surpass us?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Should be able to if I work hard." The green-clothed man glared angrily at Yi Xian. "Are you talking about shamelessness? If it's shamelessness, then there's no need for you to work hard. You've already surpassed it." Meanwhile, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Master, Xiao Ta, can't bear to watch any longer. Didn't young master inherit his shamelessness from you?" Yi Xian was at a loss for words. The green-clothed man opened his palm, and Xiao Ta appeared in his hand. He looked at Xiao Ta and nodded slightly. "Impressive. Impressive. After Xiao Ta followed you, it's like he's changed towers." As he spoke, he suddenly took out a whip and lashed out. Wu! Xiao Ta howled in pain. The green-clothed man glanced at Xiao Ta, and then lashed out with his whip again. Ah! With a shrill cry, Xiao Ta was sent flying to the end of the starry sky. The green-clothed man looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly said, "Father, I really didn't want to bring them here to find you, they forced me to bring them here to find you." The green-clothed man just looked at Yi Xian, and didn't say anything. Yi Xian was a little flustered from being stared at like that. Intuition told him that the situation was not good. At this moment, the green-clothed man suddenly said, "I feel that you've been living too comfortably." Yi Xian's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, "Father, I promise I won't come looking for you anymore. I'll take Xiao Ta away now." After saying that, he was about to slip away. At this moment, a sword intent directly locked him in place. Yi Xian smiled bitterly, and hurriedly looked at swordsman beside him. "Big brother." Swordsman hesitated, and then said, "It's not my place to interfere in the matters between you and your father." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Xiao Ta, who was at the end of the starry sky, suddenly said, "Young master, call Sister Tianming." Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. "Damn, Xiao Ta, can't you be more observant? I'm going to die because of you." As expected, the green-clothed man's expression instantly turned cold when he heard Xiao Ta's words, and he directly lashed out with his whip. At the end of the starry sky, Xiao Ta let out another shrill cry, and the cry grew further and further away. Yi Xian shook his head repeatedly when he saw this. "Xiao Ta, oh, Xiao Ta, you should be a little more careful." The green-clothed man looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Father, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. From today onwards, I'll rely on myself, I'll never." "Shut up." The green-clothed man suddenly said, "Do you think I'll believe your nonsense?" Yi Xian was speechless. The green-clothed man sized up Yi Xian, and he fell silent for a moment before he said, "I'll send you to a place." A trace of uneasiness arose in Yi Xian's heart. "Where?" The green-clothed man said indifferently, "You'll know when you get there. Go there and properly train your sword Dao. Of course, to prevent you from being flashy again, I'll have to seal your sword." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and the green profound sword fell into his hand. At this moment, the green profound sword had not completely broken through. The green-clothed man's right hand exerted force slightly. Buzz! The green profound sword let out a sword cry, and a powerful aura surged out from the sword. In an instant, the surrounding space became illusory. Even the 8th layer of space became illusory. "I've broken through." Yi Xian was overjoyed. Meanwhile, the green-clothed man suddenly flipped his palm, and the green profound sword directly sank into the space between Yi Xian's brows. Boom! Yi Xian's body shook violently, and he was slightly stunned. But soon, his expression changed. He could not sense Xiao Hun. The green profound sword had been sealed. The green-clothed man suddenly said, "If your sword Dao can break through, the seal on this sword will automatically be removed." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, "Father, where are you sending me?" The green-clothed man turned around to glance at Qin Shi, and this glance was able to see through all the territories in the world. After a short moment, he withdrew his gaze. "A place that's extremely dangerous for you." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Can you give me a few days? I need to deal with some personal matters." The green-clothed man replied, "There's no need." As he spoke, he opened his right hand, and Xiao Ta appeared within it. He suddenly clenched his right hand, causing Xiao Ta to tremble violently, and then the strange space within Xiao Ta's world was instantly sealed by him. In other words, Xiao Ta wasn't a paradise for cultivation any longer. Because it couldn't stay like it was 10 years in the outside world any longer. The green-clothed man gazed at Xiao Ta in his hand. "If you're still so arrogant the next time I see you, then I'll break your legs." As he spoke, he placed Xiao Ta in front of Yi Xian. "Both of you better think about it." As he finished speaking, without waiting for Yi Xian to speak, he gently waved his right hand, and a sword ray tore through the starry sky. The next moment, Yi Xian and Xiao Ta were directly sent away by this sword ray. After Yi Xian and Xiao Ta were sent away, the green-clothed man sighed softly. Beside him, Swordsman smiled and asked, "What's wrong?" The green-clothed man said softly, "Heavens will has opened up too many shortcuts for this little guy, and this isn't a good thing." Swordsman was silent. The green-clothed man sighed softly, this little guy was getting more and more fancy. Most importantly, when he encountered difficulties, this little guy didn't think of using strength to solve them, but instead used some crooked ideas. He really didn't expect that Yi Xian would bring the enemy right in front of him. This kind of operation left him dumbfounded. At this moment, Swordsman suddenly asked, "Where did you send him?" The green-clothed man thought about it and said, "A place far away from heaven's will. Not only that, I've also completely concealed his aura and sealed his sword. Now, Tianming shouldn't be able to sense him." As soon as he finished speaking, a woman in a plain dress suddenly stopped in a mysterious galaxy. She turned her head and glanced at him before turning to leave. Chapter 1891. When Yi Xian woke up, his head felt like it was filled with lead. It was extremely heavy. Yi Xian shook his head with all his might. After his head cleared up a little, he slowly opened his eyes and looked around. At that moment, he was in the middle of a battlefield. There were corpses and blood everywhere. The air was filled with the nauseating smell of blood and the smell of rotting corpses. "Where is this?" Yi Xian frowned. "Where did Pop send me to?" As if he thought of something, Yi Xian closed his eyes. After a while, his face turned ugly. He couldn't contact little Hun. The green profound sword was really sealed. At that moment, a weak voice suddenly sounded in front of Yi Xian, "Young master." It was Xiao Ta's voice. Yi Xian looked at his chest. Xiao Ta was lying on his chest. At that moment, Xiao Ta was in a miserable state. His whole body was cracked. It could be said that he was covered with cuts and bruises. Yi Xian shook his head and sighed, "Xiao Ta, I don't think I'm fit to be your young master." Actually, he was also speechless. This Xiao Ta was too arrogant. He actually dared to talk back to Pops. Was he crazy? Who was Pops? Based on the current situation, Pops was also an invincible existence. At that moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said in a deep voice, "There's still a gap between me and Master." Yi Xian shook his head. This Xiao Ta was already hopeless. A gap? He was so thick-skinned that even he was about to concede defeat. At that moment, Xiao Ta said again, "Young Master, what should we do now?" "What should we do?" Yi Xian looked around helplessly. "What else can we do? From now on, I'll be a low-key person and you'll be a low-key pagoda." Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, "I think, under the three swords, young master and I are still invincible." Yi Xian immediately fainted. This Xiao Ta was hopeless. Suddenly, footsteps sounded from behind him. Yi Xian was startled and turned around. Not far away, a woman was slowly walking over. Not human. Although she wasn't human, her appearance wasn't much different from a human's. However, the woman's ears were a little like a fox's, and they were furry. His hair was not black, but blue. Behind the woman, there were a few burly men. Yi Xian was secretly on his guard. His father would definitely not send him to a world with an extremely low level of civilization. This place was at least a level 7 civilization. As for the woman in front of him, he could not see through her at all. The woman sized up Yi Xian and spoke. However, Yi Xian had no idea what she was talking about. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. "Miss, can you speak human language?" Hearing Yi Xian's words, the woman frowned. A moment later, a voice sounded in Yi Xian's mind, "What kind of creature are you? Why are you here?" Divine sense communication. Yi Xian's expression became even more solemn. She was actually able to enter his divine sense without a sound. When she saw that Yi Xian didn't reply, the woman frowned slightly. Why aren't you replying? When he saw that the woman's expression was hostile, Yi Xian hurriedly said, Human. Human? The woman sized up Yi Xian again and said, I've never heard of you. Yi Xian glanced at the woman. How should I address you, miss? The woman looked at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian was in a difficult position. This woman wouldn't have taken a liking to me, right? At this moment, the woman suddenly said, You humans are too ugly. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman continued, Not only are you ugly, but you're also so weak. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, how can we tolerate this? Hit her. Yi Xian directly disregarded Xiao Ta. He cupped his fists and said, Miss, where are we? The woman gazed at Yi Xian, You don't know where we are? Yi Xian nodded. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. Then why have you appeared here? Yi Xian was about to speak when the sky in the distance suddenly seethed. Yi Xian turned around and looked over. A powerful wave of pressure swept over from afar, and then a man walked out from within space. The man wore golden armor and held a spear in his hand. Moreover, a pair of wings grew on his back, and as they flapped, the space around him rippled like water. The woman's expression instantly turned cold when she saw this man, and the expressions of the two experts behind her became solemn. The armored man's gaze descended onto the woman, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Miss Arrow Sheng, what a coincidence. The woman called Arrow Sheng chuckled lightly. Yan Emperor, looks like your Yan clan is interested in this restricted area as well. Yan Huang laughed. Likewise. Arrow Sheng smiled faintly. Shall we cooperate? Yan Huang glanced at Arashing and said with a smile, Sure. Arrow Sheng turned to Yi Xian. You're new here, and I believe you have nowhere to go. Why don't you follow me? What do you think? Yi Xian quickly shook his head, and was about to refuse when Arrow Sheng spoke again. This place is called 10 Directions Impasse. Do you see the corpses around you? They were all 18 stages when they were alive. 18 stages. Yi Xian's expression changed. Damn it. What kind of damned place did my dad send me to? 18 stages are like ants? This is my real dad. Yi Xian was speechless. Arrow Sheng asked again, What do you think? Yi Xian looked at Arrow Sheng. I'll follow you. Arrow Sheng smiled and looked at Yan Huang. Let's go. Yan Huang looked at Yi Xian and nodded. The group started walking away. They had only taken a few steps when the ground on their right suddenly trembled. The next moment, a rotten corpse suddenly broke through the ground and headed straight for Arashing and the others. Wherever this rotten corpse passed, the seventh layer of spacetime was directly shattered and annihilated. Seeing this, Yi Xian's expression changed. What the hell is this? How could it be so terrifying? Yan Huang suddenly stabbed out with his spear. Boom! The zombie was erased by the spear. Instant kill. Yi Xian took a deep look at the Yan Emperor and Aluosheng, who were leading the group. The strength of these two people might have reached level 20. What kind of place is this? Yi Xian frowned. He was a little worried about his own survival at the moment. He was only at 10th stage now, and the green profound sword was sealed by his dad. Right now, he was too weak, way too weak. That rotten corpse just now could have killed him in an instant. My dear dad. Yi Xian sighed. His dad only knew to send him to a dangerous place. He definitely didn't think about how dangerous this place was or his current strength. At this moment, the Yan Emperor and Arashing, who were in the lead, suddenly stopped. Yi Xian looked around and frowned. His instincts told him that there was danger. As soon as this thought came to mind, the space around them suddenly trembled. Then, the space around them started to corrode bit by bit. Danger. Yi Xian's expression became serious. What kind of place is this? At this moment, the Yan Emperor suddenly stomped his right foot lightly. Boom! The wings on the Yan Emperor's back suddenly flapped, and in an instant, the space he was in was directly enveloped by a mysterious airflow. At the same time, Arlasheng suddenly pressed down with her right hand, and in an instant, the space she and the two old men behind her were in was enveloped by a layer of golden light. As if thinking of something, Arlasheng looked at Yi Xian. Right now, the space around Yi Xian was completely corroded. In a few breaths, he would disappear from this world. Yi Xian's expression was calm, but he was panicking inside. What should I do? He wanted to summon the green profound sword, but he couldn't sense little soul. At this moment, Arlasheng, who was next to him, suddenly pressed down lightly with her right hand, and Yi Xian was instantly enveloped by a golden light. Yi Xian relaxed. He looked at Arlasheng and smiled. Thank you. Arlasheng smiled. You're welcome. Yan Huang glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. Hee. Right at this moment, a cold and strange laughter suddenly sounded from the side. Yi Xian turned his head to look. Not far away, the ground there suddenly split open. Then, a skeleton slowly floated out. The skeleton held a bone blade in its hand. Seeing this skeleton, Arlasheng frowned. Undead Emperor. The skeleton looked at Arlasheng. You know of me? Arlasheng looked at the undead emperor. 1,000,000 years ago, I was invincible in the realm of Seamless. Haha. The undead emperor laughed. I didn't think that after 1,000,000 years, someone would still know of me. Not bad, not bad. Arlasheng said in a deep voice, why are you here? The undead emperor smiled. I want to obtain the 10 directions God Emperor's inheritance. Arosa's gaze fell upon the undead emperor's feet. There was a blood-red chain around the undead emperor's feet. Seeing this, Arlasheng's expression darkened. Retreat. Retreat. Just as she was about to leave with the two elders behind her, the space around them suddenly turned blood-red. Then, countless blood-red chains suddenly flew out from the space around them. The Yan Emperor in the lead narrowed his eyes. He suddenly leaped up and slashed down with the spear in his hand. However, this attack was completely useless. A blood-red chain pierced through the center of his brows and forcefully locked him on the spot. On the other side, Arlasheng was about to leave with the two elders behind her, but she was too slow. 3 blood-red chains locked the 3 of them in place. They didn't even have a chance to resist. Yi Xian, on the other hand, was more sensible. When the blood-red chains appeared, he stretched out his hands and obediently let the blood-red chains lock him up. No resistance. Surrender. Right at this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly rang out from the side. Everyone turned around to look, and they saw a little girl walking over slowly from nearby. The little girl wasn't wearing shoes, and she wore a red dress. Upon closer inspection, the dress was formed from blood. On the right side of the little girl's face, there was a deep scar that made the little girl look somewhat ferocious. In the little girl's right hand, there was a dagger made of blood. Seeing the little girl, the undead emperor immediately knelt on the ground and trembled. The little girl walked in front of the fire emperor. She looked up at him and opened her palm. 10 billion soul crystals. Seeing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn, is this a female bandit? But what the hell is a soul crystal? The fire emperor looked at the little girl. None. The little girl suddenly waved her right hand. In an instant, the fire emperor was directly dismembered into tens of thousands of pieces. Even his soul was dismembered. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. That's it? Such a powerful super expert was killed just like that? The little girl walked in front of Arlasheng. She looked at Arlasheng and opened her right hand. 10 billion. Arlasheng was silent for a moment. I don't have it on me. Can I have someone send it over? The little girl nodded. Sure. As she said this, she looked at the two elders behind Arrow Sheng. The two elders hurriedly looked at Arrow Sheng. Arrow Sheng remained silent. 1,000,000 soul crystals. This number was simply too large. What were soul crystals? They were soul essences condensed from souls. Most importantly, not all souls could be condensed into soul essences. Only those who had reached at least the 15th phase could condense soul crystals. 1,000,000 soul crystals. This meant that at least 1,000,000 15th phase and above experts had to be killed. Seeing that Arrow Sheng didn't say anything, the two elders' faces turned ashen. At this time, the little girl waved her right hand and the two elders were dismembered into tens of thousands of pieces. The little girl walked in front of Yi Xian. When she saw Yi Xian, she frowned. So weak? Yi Xian, the little girl stretched out her right hand. 1,000,000 soul crystals. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't have it. The little girl looked at Yi Xian. Have someone send it over. Yi Xian didn't say anything. The little girl was about to move. At this time, Yi Xian hurriedly said, I'll have someone send it over. As he said this, he slowly closed his eyes. Xiaoling, tell Xiao Bai to contact Dad and tell him that I've been kidnapped. Have him pay 2,000,000 soul crystals to redeem me. A moment later, in an unknown galaxy, a man in a green robe suddenly stopped. Beside him, the swordsman asked, What's wrong? The green-robed man was expressionless. He's been kidnapped. Let me pay him back. The swordsman. Chapter 1892. He was kidnapped. Swordsman's expression was a little strange. The green-robed man sighed softly. This guy, Swordsman smiled. He must have encountered some kind of trouble. Should we go and take a look? The green-robed man hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. Let him solve it himself. Swordsman said. He probably can't solve it, that's why he came to you. The green-robed man shook his head and sighed. Brother Xiao, we don't have much time. He must grow up. If Tianming and I still help him like this, he will never grow up. Swordsman thought for a moment, then nodded. That's true. The green-robed man said. Let's go. Swordsman hesitated for a moment, then said. Let's wait and see. Swordsman shook his head and smiled. Clearly, the green-robed man was still worried. 10th extremity. The little girl in the red dress sat on a rock, her two little feet swaying gently. In her hand, there was a half-eaten spirit fruit. In front of the little girl, the undead emperor was dancing. That's right. A skeleton was dancing, and it was quite a good dance. It had to be said that the scene was very strange. Meanwhile, Arrow Sheng's expression was extremely solemn. Who was this undead emperor? 1,000,000 years ago, he was already invincible in the Seamless Realm. And now, such an invincible powerhouse was actually dancing here. Who was this little girl in the red dress? Was she the 10th God Emperor? Arrow Sheng's heart was full of doubts, but she didn't dare to ask for fear of angering the little girl. Not long after, an old man came to the 10th extremity. The old man walked in front of Arrow Sheng and respectfully handed over a storage ring. Inside the ring, there were 10 billion soul crystals. Arrow Sheng handed the storage ring to the little girl. The little girl glanced at it, then put it away and said. Let's go. Arrow Sheng nodded slightly, then turned and left. When passing by Yi Xian, she suddenly stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian. Where's your family? Hearing this, Yi Xian suddenly felt sad. Because his father didn't reply. Arrow Sheng gently patted Yi Xian's shoulder. Take care. With that, she quickly disappeared into the distance without looking back. At this moment, the little girl looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian didn't say anything. At this time, the little girl got up and walked in front of Yi Xian. The spirit fruit in her hand had turned into a dagger. It was this dagger that had dismembered the Yan Emperor into tens of thousands of pieces. The little girl looked at Yi Xian. Pauper. As she spoke, she was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Wait." The little girl stared at Yi Xian without saying anything, but Yi Xian could already feel a terrifying killing intent. Yi Xian opened his palm, and Xiao Ta appeared in his hand. "Take a look and see if this is worth 10 billion soul crystals." Xiao Ta immediately jumped up. "Young master, you're too much. You actually sold it to me." Yi Xian, in front of Yi Xian, the little girl glanced at Xiao Ta and frowned. After a while, she shook her head. "It's not worth it." Hearing this, Xiao Ta was furious. "You actually said that I'm not worth it? I'm the #1 pagoda in the universe." Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. "The #1 pagoda in the universe, I can testify." The little girl sized up Xiao Ta and shook her head again. "It's useless." Yi Xian, Xiao Ta still wanted to say something, but the little girl suddenly slashed down with her dagger. Boom! Xiao Ta trembled violently and was directly sent flying. However, he was not damaged. The little girl frowned slightly when she witnessed this scene. She opened her palm, and the tiny pagoda appeared in her hand. She sized up the tiny pagoda, and in the next moment, she entered the tiny pagoda's world. In Xiao Ta's world, the little girl looked around. Very quickly, she seemed to have discovered something, and her brows furrowed again. After a while, the little girl's eyes narrowed. She discovered a seal. The seal left behind by the green-robed man. Suddenly, the little girl slashed down with her dagger. Boom! The surrounding space suddenly shook violently, but that seal did not have any reaction. After a moment of silence, the little girl left Xiao Ta. She just looked at Yi Xian, not saying anything. Yi Xian's scalp went numb from her stare. This woman had no way of breaking the seal left behind by his father, but she was definitely not someone he could fight against at the moment. The little girl suddenly turned around and left. Yi Xian frowned, a little confused. At the side, the undead emperor took a deep look at Yi Xian, and then hurriedly followed after the little girl. Yi Xian was a little confused. Why did the little girl suddenly stop? He had actually already felt this little girl's killing intent. She wanted to kill him, but for some reason, she stopped. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian decided to escape. He had just taken a few steps when a voice suddenly spoke up from the side. "If I were you, I would stay here." Yi Xian turned around and saw that the undead emperor had returned. Yi Xian asked in a low voice, "Why?" The undead emperor said calmly, "There are undead everywhere outside. If you go out, you will be instantly dismembered." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then asked, "Senior, who is that little girl?" The undead emperor shook her head. "I don't know." Yi Xian frowned. "You don't know?" The undead emperor nodded. "I have been here for 800,000 years, but I know nothing about her." 800,000 years. Upon hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. This girl had been imprisoned here for 800,000 years. The undead emperor glanced at Yi Xian. "I don't know why she hasn't killed you, but remember, don't make her angry. Don't ever make her angry. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe." After saying this, the undead emperor turned around and left. Yi Xian raised his head and saw a black cloud floating above his head. Apart from that, there was nothing else. A moment later, Yi Xian walked off into the distance. After passing through a narrow cave, Yi Xian's expression drastically changed. Not too far away from him was a boundless sea of blood. He couldn't even see the end of it, and the little girl was sitting right next to the sea of blood. The undead emperor followed her from afar. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before walking over to the little girl's side. Seeing this, the undead emperor's mouth twitched. Was this guy trying to get himself killed? In the distance, the little girl turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian directly took out a stick of candied hawthorn and handed it to the little girl. The little girl furrowed her eyebrows. What is it? Yi Xian said in a serious tone, candied hawthorn. The little girl glanced at Yi Xian, but didn't say anything. Yi Xian hurriedly said, it's delicious. After a moment of silence, the little girl accepted the candied hawthorn and licked it. Her eyes instantly widened, and the next moment, she hurriedly licked it again. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Damn, this candied hawthorn was truly a divine artifact. Fortunately, he had prepared several bundles of candied hawthorn. It could save his life at a critical moment. Yi Xian looked at the little girl. Does it taste good? The little girl nodded. Sure. Yi Xian took out another candied hawthorn and handed it to the little girl. Eat this candied hawthorn, and we'll be good friends from now on. This caused the undead emperor to widen her eyes in shock. Had this guy gone crazy? Become friends with this little girl? At this moment, the little girl took the candied hawthorn from Yi Xian's hands. Friends? Yi Xian nodded. Do you have any friends? The little girl shook her head. No. Yi Xian hurriedly said, then I'll be your friend from now on. The little girl glanced at Yi Xian. Okay. The undead emperor almost fainted upon hearing this. Friends? Damn. This guy used a candied hawthorn to become friends with this little girl? The undead emperor felt like his brain wasn't enough to process this. Yi Xian sat down next to the little girl and smiled. My name is Yi Xian. What's your name? The little girl said, Blood Eye. Blood Eye. Yi Xian smiled and then asked, can you leave? Blood Eye shook his head. No. Yi Xian said in a low voice, there's a barrier? Blood Eye nodded. Yes. Yi Xian frowned. You're so powerful, but you can't break it? Blood Eye said softly, I'm injured. Injured. Yi Xian sized up Blood Eye and then said, how long will it take for you to recover? Blood Eye shook his head. I won't recover. Yi Xian didn't quite understand. Why? Blood Eye turned to glance at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. Yi Xian was about to speak when Blood Eye suddenly said, friends? Yi Xian looked at Blood Eye, and Blood Eye stared back at Yi Xian. You and I are friends? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Blood Eye nodded slightly. Friends should help each other, right? Yi Xian was just about to nod when he suddenly realized that something was off. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't reply, Blood Eye narrowed his eyes. You don't treat me as a friend? In an instant, the nearby sea of blood started to seethe, and boundless killing intent filled the entire sky. Off to the side, the undead emperor immediately crawled down and trembled in fear. Yi Xian hurriedly said, friend. We're good friends. Blood Eye nodded slightly, and the sea of blood instantly calmed down. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. This little girl's strength is truly terrifying. At this moment, Blood Eye suddenly said, I want to ask you for a favor. Yi Xian's expression froze. His intuition told him that he'd been tricked. Blood Eye turned to look at Yi Xian. A small favor. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, I'm a little weak. Blood Eye looked directly at Yi Xian. Are you going to help me or not? Yi Xian felt quite helpless. Tell me. Blood Eye looked at Yi Xian. Who left the seal within Xiao Ta's body? Yi Xian's expression became solemn when he heard this. At this moment, he understood why the little girl hadn't killed him. So it was because of his father. Blood Eye asked again. Who? Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, I know what you mean, but I can't contact him. Even if I could, he wouldn't come. Blood Eye frowned slightly. Who is he to you? Yi Xian felt quite helpless. My father. Blood-Eye stared at Yi Xian. Biological father? Yi Xian nodded. Blood-Eye fell silent for a moment before he said, put on a show. Just say that I want to kill you and ask him to save you. What do you think? Yi Xian said helplessly, I tried just now. He didn't even pay attention to me. Blood-Eye frowned slightly. Are you sure he's your biological father? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, I'm not very sure. Shui Tong fell silent for a moment before he said, I suggest you change your father. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Please vote. Any ticket is fine. Chapter 1893. Change father? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. How could he change his father whenever he wanted? At this moment, Small Tower suddenly snorted coldly and said, Master is just not kind. He always says that you rely too much on big sister Tianming and him, but he never thinks about one problem, and that is young Master, your enemy. Master didn't have so many powerful enemies back then, but young Master, your enemies have always been abnormal. Look, young Master, you're only at the 10th phase now, but the enemies you're facing are all at the 20th phase. How are you going to play? Yi Xian smiled, actually, I can understand father. Xiao Ta was puzzled, understand? He treats you like this, and you still understand him? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, I can't deny that I rely too much on Qing. Look at me now, without the profound azure sword, I'm like a lamb, waiting to be slaughtered. Xiao Ta was silent. Yi Xian said softly, I need to change myself. In some unknown part of the starry sky, the man in green suddenly withdrew his gaze and laughed, Brother Xiao, let's go. After saying that, he laughed and disappeared at the end of the starry sky. Beside the blood sea, Shui Tong didn't speak anymore. She sat on a rock and licked her candied haws, then looked at the distant blood sea. Yi Xian walked to the side, opened his palm, and a sword appeared in his hand. He slowly closed his eyes, and gradually, he fused with the 6th layer of time and space. Without the profound azure sword, he could still fuse with the 6th layer of time and space. However, he didn't dare to be as unscrupulous as before, because the current him not only couldn't ignore the space-time abyss, but he also couldn't ignore the space-time pressure of the 6th layer of time and space. When seeing Yi Xian enter the 6th layer of time and space, the undead emperor frowned, You're only at the 10th phase, how can you enter the 6th layer of time and space? And fuse with it? Yi Xian was puzzled, Senior can't enter the 6th layer of time and space at the 10th phase? The undead emperor looked at Yi Xian, no. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why not? The undead emperor growled, What I want to know is how you are able to do this. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I just gave it a try, and then I fused with it. The undead emperor, Yi Xian asked, Senior, what realm is the seamless realm that Miss Aoshing mentioned? The undead emperor glanced at Yi Xian, then said, After the 20th phase, if you continue to improve your power, you'll be at the seamless level. There was no space, and there was no time. In other words, the 8th layer of space. The 8th layer of spacetime is also called the seamless space. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior, when I entered the 8th spacetime, I saw someone who looked exactly like me. That was, the undead emperor suddenly interrupted Yi Xian. You've entered the 8th heaven? Yi Xian nodded. Yeah. The undead emperor stared at Yi Xian. Are you joking? Yi Xian shook his head. No. The undead emperor said in a deep voice, You've really been there before? Yi Xian nodded. I've been there before. The undead emperor looked deeply at Yi Xian. You're very abnormal. He believed Yi Xian's words, because if Yi Xian hadn't entered the 8th layer of spacetime, he wouldn't know what it was like in the 8th layer of spacetime. But what he didn't understand was, how did this guy get in there? Yi Xian suddenly asked, Senior, what is seamless? The undead emperor fell silent for a moment, then said, I don't know how to explain it to you. The current your realm is a bit low. Also, your aura is a bit weak and unstable. It's obvious that you've taken a shortcut. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. This was a real boss. The undead emperor asked again, You're a swordsman? Yi Xian nodded. A swordsman. The undead emperor laughed. I once knew a swordsman and had a few exchanges with him. He had some insights into the way of the sword. Come, show me a sword technique, and I'll give you some pointers. Yi Xian nodded, then suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Sword draw to decide life and death. 2,800 stacked sword draws to decide life and death. This sword strike tore the space around them apart. Xue Tong suddenly turned his head to look at Yi Xian and frowned. When the undead emperor saw Yi Xian's sword strike, his expression instantly became serious. You. Who taught you this sword technique? Yi Xian said seriously, I created it myself. Created it himself. The undead emperor paused for a moment, then said, You created this sword technique yourself? Yi Xian nodded. That's right. The undead emperor looked deeply at Yi Xian. Impressive. Yi Xian said, I also have another sword technique. After saying that, he directly used sword draw to decide life and death. When the undead emperor saw this sword strike, his expression became even more serious. You created this as well? Yi Xian nodded. That's right. I spent 10 days to create it. The undead emperor was speechless. Actually, Yi Xian wasn't trying to show off. He had only used these two sword techniques to protect himself. The more extraordinary his performance was, the greater his chances of survival. At this moment, the undead emperor said in a low voice, Little brother, your background isn't simple at all. Yi Xian said seriously, Please teach me, senior. After a moment of silence, the undead emperor said, I don't have the qualifications to teach you this sword technique, but I do have some personal insights. Yi Xian hurriedly bowed respectfully. Please teach me, senior. The undead emperor said in a low voice, Your realm is on the low side. If you reach the 20th stage, with that sword technique of yours, you can be said to be almost invincible within the 20th stage. You can even fight against seamless realm powerhouses. So, you must first break through your own realm and raise yourself to the 20th stage. Yi Xian nodded. All right. The undead emperor hesitated for a moment, then said, But if you want to reach the 20th stage, you must have soul crystals. You need at least 500,000 soul crystals. Yi Xian was a little confused. What are soul crystals? The undead emperor was a little confused. You don't know what soul crystals are? Yi Xian nodded. I don't know. The undead emperor had a rather strange expression on his face. Moments later, he said, A soul crystal refers to a soul essence condensed from one's soul. This soul essence's energy is incredibly terrifying, far more powerful than some crystals. From a certain standpoint, a single soul crystal is equivalent to a person's life's work. The more powerful one's soul is, the more powerful the soul essence will be. If you want to reach the 20th stage, you need at least 500,000 soul crystals. 500,000 soul crystals. Yi Xian looked at the undead emperor, who stretched out his hands. Don't even think about it. I don't even have a single strand of hair. Yi Xian sized up the undead emperor. Indeed, he did not have a single strand of hair, only bones. The undead emperor glanced at Crimson Eye, but did not say anything. Yi Xian naturally understood what he meant. He looked at Crimson Eye. This girl must have a lot of soul crystals. Crimson Eye glanced at Yi Xian. A stick of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals. Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. A stick of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals. At this moment, Crimson Eye asked again, Do you want to trade? Yi Xian thought for a moment before saying, 2 sticks of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals. Crimson Eye looked at Yi Xian. Why? Yi Xian said seriously, because we're friends. If one stick of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals, my conscience would ache. The reason why my life has been full of ups and downs is because I'm too honest. Sigh. Beside him, the undead emperor's mouth twitched slightly. He wanted to hit someone. Perhaps Crimson Eye did not recognize candied hawthorn, but how could he not recognize it? 2 sticks of candied hawthorn for 10,000 soul crystals. Damn it, this guy was crazy. At this moment, he felt quite sullen. Damn it, if he had known that this boss Crimson Eye liked eating candied hawthorn, he would not have ended up like this. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel sorrow. Hundreds of thousands of years. He had relied on dancing to please this boss Crimson Eye for the past hundreds of thousands of years, but this human had used candied hawthorn to befriend this boss Crimson Eye. Candied hawthorn. Damn it, why hadn't he brought some candied hawthorn? Not far away, Crimson Eye looked at Yi Xian. After a moment of silence, she said, "You're not bad." As she spoke, she waved her right hand, and 100,000 soul crystals appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian hurriedly took out 5 sticks of candied hawthorn and gave them to Crimson Eye. He thought for a moment before taking out an extra stick and giving it to Crimson Eye. "I'll give you one more." Crimson Eye glanced at Yi Xian. She accepted the candied hawthorn and said, "Thank you." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "You're welcome, you're welcome." As he spoke, he walked over to the undead emperor. "Senior, I'm going to break through to the 20th phase." The undead emperor, in the following period of time, Yi Xian began to break through to the 20th phase. Even though he was only at the 10th phase, he could already enter the 6th layer of spacetime and fuse with it. What he needed now was some experience in the way of spacetime. And this undead emperor's guidance could make up for that. The undead emperor was actually quite shocked. This was because Yi Xian's cultivation speed was quite fast. This guy was only at the 10th phase, but he could already enter the 6th layer of spacetime and fuse with it. This was simply too abnormal. The undead emperor was becoming more and more curious about Yi Xian's origins. The reason why he had expressed goodwill to Yi Xian before was because he felt that Yi Xian was not a simple person. Perhaps this human could change his current predicament. Time passed bit by bit. Yi Xian's progress was godly, and he reached the 12th phase in less than a month. Not only that, but under the undead emperor's guidance, he became more and more familiar with the way of spacetime and understood it better. While Yi Xian was cultivating, Crimson Eye would sit by the blood sea every day without saying a word. Another month passed, and Yi Xian had reached the 13th phase. Even though he was only at the 13th phase, with his current strength, he could easily kill someone at the 17th phase even without using the profound green sword. It had to be said that cultivation consumed a lot of soul crystals. He had spent at least 1,000,000 soul crystals to reach the 13th phase. Fortunately, he had enough candied hawthorn. Otherwise, he would not have been able to cultivate so quickly. 1 month later, Yi Xian had reached the 14th phase. Just as he was about to continue cultivating, the blood sea in the distance suddenly began to boil. At the same time, an extremely terrifying pressure swept out from the depths of the blood sea. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.